Still no Matt. Wonder if he has a power outage.
It seems like it's affecting over in the Northfield Road area by Settlers Crossing Golf Course and down in that area.
Okay, you're all set to go. You're on.
All right, thank you. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and available for viewing over the Lunenburg Public Access YouTube channel, and actually it's being broadcast tonight. The town of Lunenburg, in response to COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, and all meetings are being conducted remotely. This meeting will be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. To participate remotely on Zoom, members of the public may use cell phones, tablets, or computers with audio and video capabilities. The Zoom meeting ID is 844-0856-4373. No participant ID is needed. Just press pound when asked. All participants who are not members of the commission or staff will be muted. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. Depending upon the version of Zoom you have, to access the raise hand feature, you may have to open the participant list by clicking on participants, and there'll be a little button at the bottom of it. Or it could be on your version of Zoom, there'll be a reactions panel at the bottom, and one of the options there will be to raise hand. The chair will call on you and unmute you, although actually tonight I'm not the host, so Neil Trahan will have to unmute you. Telephone audio users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Members of the public must give their name and address before they begin speaking. Please direct all comments to the chair. If you have trouble accessing Zoom or have general questions, you can send an email to lcc@lunenburgonline.com during the meeting. Emails containing questions or comments that are to be read aloud at the meeting must be signed with full name, address, and phone number. Please be aware if you're using video, other people will be able to see you, and anything that is broadcast will be recorded. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And so I'm Bob Pease, I'm the chair. Ken Jones, are you here?
Present.
Rich Birch?
Present.
Katie Childs?
Here.
Carl Luck is not with us tonight. Jack Rabbit? Jack Rabbit?
He's muted.
Can you unmute Jack Rabbit, please?
There he is.
Good. Can you hear me now, Bob?
I can.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Viviano?
Present.
Thank you, Jeff. And Mike LaRouche, our associate member.
Here.
Thank you, Mike. First is public comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes on a subject matter under the direct jurisdiction of the commission. Comments about current agenda items are to be made during the comment period for the specific agenda item. Are there any public comment from members of the commission? Please raise your hand. So Neil Trahan can. Seeing none, are there any public
Mr. Chairman,
comment?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Hang on, there are hands raised.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
Ken, you got your hand up?
I do, yeah. I just wanted to give a brief invitation to the public to the pollinator habitat for some Earth Day celebration type events this week. If you go to their Facebook page, it's all listed on their Lunenburg Community Pollinator Habitat. There are several events this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the morning, I believe. I'm not sure the specific times, but there's some events coming up. They're doing some little raffles, some work parties, and like the children's day is on Saturday. So the general public is invited and certainly more than welcome to come. The more the merrier. But check out Facebook for some more details.
Thank you, Ken. Are there any other comments from members of the commission?
One other person, Katie.
Go ahead, Katie. She's a member of the public, but
Sorry.
We'll listen to her now. Go ahead, Katie. You have to unmute her. Neil?
Yep, she's got to unmute herself.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, this meeting functions differently with the unmute part. So I had a public comment. It's Katie Adams, Peninsula Drive, and maybe more a form of a question. I'd gone onto the Saliba property for my first time a few days ago and was seeking Table Rock and couldn't find it. So just posted to one of the Facebook pages, any pointers? And what broke out in that thread was a lot of people had accessibility questions, that they had tried to access the land or weren't sure how to use Saliba. And I didn't have any answers to that. So I didn't know if there's any information or updates on how people are supposed to access that and where to find more information, because it was a very nice walk.
I saw that on Facebook, Katie. The commission is in the process of implementing a recreational trails program grant, and we're going to put up a informational kiosk down by the road. We're going to put up you are here trail map signs at every trail head and every trail intersection. And you're seeing your post caused me to think that we should add Table Rock to the map, because right now Table Rock isn't on the map. And in actual fact, it's a little awkward because in order to get to Cable Rock, you have to go over land that belongs to the golf course. And I've reached out to Bill Gustus to try to get permission, for us to show those trails on our map, and he has not been responding. And we also have an issue with the abutters there on the right. They keep putting up no trespassing signs along the right side, which are a little, forbidding. Which is their right, but it doesn't apply to our use of the road. So, and our long-term plan is, but it's very long-term, is to take and create a new trail up the middle, just about opposite where the sign is on the other side. So you go up the middle of the property, so you're not on that old stagecoach road that goes along the border of the property. But that's probably years away.
Okay, thank you for the update. So if I found Table Rock, did I trespass on private property?
You probably did on the way there in order to get there, because there's a big road that goes down, and you have to sort of go off to the left to get to Table Rock. You go about 30 feet down that road, you're on golf course land.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I found it.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments from members of the public? I don't see any other hands. This is driving me crazy, not being the host.
No hands, Bob. You're doing great.
All right. I'm going to defer approval of minutes till the end of the meeting, even though they're listed at the beginning, because I'm hoping that Matt Morrow will join us by the end of the meeting. I'm assuming he's got power issues or something. So we're going to go right into our first hearing. The Lunenburg Conservation Commission, under authority granted by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8C, is revising the rules and regulations governing the use of Lunenburg land and waters under its care and control. The Conservation Commission will hold a public forum hearing for consideration of revisions to Commission land use policy. The supporting documents are also available for review at the Conservation Commission office by appointment, and emailing a PDF is also an option. And also they were posted on the commission webpage. This is the way this hearing is going to go. First, I'm going to review a question and answer document that was prepared mostly by the commission. I had a little bit to it myself yesterday. Then I'm going to open it up to people who have comments about things in the land use rules other than hunting. And then I'm going to open up to people who have comments about hunting and the possession of firearms. So first, I'd like to take and share my screen. Let's see. Can people see this?
Yep.
Looks good.
All right, so this document was for the most part prepared by the commission. There's a few parts of it that I added yesterday, and those are underlined so people at home in the commission can see, what's different. What Mass General Law, so I want to go through this. It doesn't take very long. What Mass General Law grants the Conservation Commission the authority to adopt land use regulations? And the Enabling Act for Conservation Commissions gives us that authority. What town agreements with the state may impact the adoption of such regulations? The Hunting Hills Conservation Easement, the land management plans for Table Rock and the Lane property, and grant agreements for properties purchased with self-help grants may impact the adoption of self-regulations. It appears as though really the only one that's going to matter is the Hunting Hills Conservation Easement. How long have the current land use regulations been in effect? Since 2011. Before that, there weren't any. What town land, open space lands are subject to these regulations? There's quite a few properties that are under the care and control of the Conservation Commission. They're listed here in order of decreasing size. The biggest one is the Cowdrey. The smallest one is the Whalum waterfront. What large, greater than 10-acre undeveloped town-owned open space lands are not subject to these regulations? The town has 3 large properties: the Woodliff property, which is 111 acres, 671 West Street, which is 66 acres, the Twin Cities parcel, 225 Pleasant Street, which is 41 acres, and Saliba South, which is under the care and control of the Parks and Recreation Department, which is 55 acres. These do not have the land use regulations do not apply to these properties. And as far as I know, there are no regulations at all for the properties that are under the care and control of the Board of Selectmen. What's been the revision process to date? Back on November 18th, I prepared a draft revision to the regs, and we posted a December 7th second public hearing, which was advertised in the Ledger, and we posted the draft regs on our website. We had a public hearing in December. At the public hearing, someone proposed allowing hunting with firearms. And I said, if you wanted to do that, it was incumbent upon you to come with a definite proposal. On December 16th, the new proposal with restructured regulations was considered. And we scheduled a commission workshop for January 6th. On January 6th, all these things happened in Washington, D.C., so we rescheduled it to January 13th. On January 13th, we had a workshop where we developed a new draft based on the restructured draft regulations, and we scheduled a public hearing for January 20th. On January 20th, the public hearing was continued to February 17th because we weren't ready. On February 3rd, we had a draft revised. The draft was revised based on town council's recommended changes, and we scheduled a February 17th public hearing and posted everything on the website. On February 17th, we had a public hearing. 77 people participated. The hearing lasted 2 hours and 20 minutes, and we scheduled an additional public hearing on March 17th to be advertised in the Ledger. March 3rd, we had a workshop to further revise the draft regulations during the regular meeting. On March 17th, the public hearing was postponed. And the workshop to further revise the regs during the regular meeting. On April 7th, we had a workshop to further revise the draft regulations during our regular meeting. The resulting draft was posted on the the resulting draft was posted on our website, and the commission approved this Q&A document. And now we're having this public hearing tonight. So it's been a long process. What are there differences in hunting uses between the current regulations and the draft regulations? Both allow bow hunting on all parcels and hunting with firearms on hunting hills. The draft allows hunting with firearms on the Northwest Town Forest and the small town forest. The draft includes a requirement that field dressing of animals must occur out of sight of established trails. The draft changes a prohibition on the possession of firearms to a prohibition on use unless otherwise exempted for hunting. The draft includes an Appendix C with information about hunting for non-hunters. Some hunting laws that are included in the current regulations are included in the draft's hunting appendix, including the following prohibitions: hunting on Sunday, possession of loaded firearms, discharge of a firearm, hunting on the land within 500 feet of any dwelling or building in use unless permitted by the owner or occupant, and discharge of any firearm or release of any arrow across any state or hard surface highway or within 100 feet of such highway. Why were the Northwest Town Forest and the small town forest chosen for firearm hunting? The Northwest Town Forest abuts Willard Brook State Park in Townsend and Lunenburg, where all forms of hunting are allowed. The small town forest abuts Hunting Hills Wildlife Management Area in Townsend, where all forms of hunting are allowed. What are the other differences other than hunting between the current regulations and the draft regulations? The draft regulations use the statutory definition of conservation land to identify the lands governed by the regulations. The draft regulations use the statutory definition of passive recreation to identify allowed uses, while the current regulations have a list of specific allowed examples of passive recreation. The draft regulations specifically allow geocaching. The draft regulations allow snowmobiling on specifically marked trails as approved by the commission. While this is a change in the regulations, it's not a change in practice. The draft regulations define a process for the regulations' future revision that states the public will establish a draft of proposed changes during open meetings and then conduct a formal televised public hearing. The draft regulations eliminate set timelines for application of motor vehicle use, overnight use, or use for organized or commercial events. Motor vehicle use by special permission has been eliminated. The details of application for overnight camping use and for activities which charge fees or collect funds for any purpose have been moved to two new forms: a day and overnight camping permit and a funded organization permit. The current regulations prohibit any behavior, conduct, or activity that infringes on another's undisturbed and quiet enjoyment, while the draft prohibits activities that are not in full compliance with all state, local, and federal laws. The non-existent trail stewardship program, which is described in the current regulations, is eliminated and replaced in the draft by a decentralized approach that defines what trail maintenance activities are allowed without prior permission and what trail maintenance activities do require prior permission. The prohibition on glass containers was eliminated. The prohibition on fires, grills, or fuel stoves was changed to prohibit smoking and open fires. The draft regulations do not include laws and regulations passed by other authorities that were repeated in the existing regulations, including drunkenness, breach of peace, and disorderly conduct, prohibiting nudity, and having to obey signs in the lawful direction of public officials and Conservation Commission. Also, this is not in the version of this is posted on the website. The draft regulations state that the conservation land use regulations do not apply to Hunting Hill, which has its own set of regulations set by a board representing Mass Life, Shirley Conservation, and Lunenburg Conservation. These Hunting Hill regulations were added as Appendix D in their regulations. And I added this section. because we were asked this question. Why is the chair of the Conservation Commission pursuing revision of the land use regulations at the current time? In January of 2020, the select board came within one vote of granting 2 hunters permission to hunt with firearms on all conservation lands, in spite of the wording in the current regulations. Therefore, I, as the chair, want to revise the land use regulations to make it clear firearm hunting is prohibited on conservation lands by our current language. I wanted to revise the land use regulations to identify trail maintenance activities that volunteers can perform without the prior permission of the commission. Right now, our regulations basically say you can't do any trail maintenance without prior permission, and that really is not sustainable. And the final reason that I'm very anxious to get this completed is the commission has a $21,267 recreational trails program grant to put up over 150 "You Are Here" metal trail map signs at every trailhead and every trail intersection. Each of these signs will include a statement about what hunting is allowed on that particular parcel. The grant cannot be implemented until the land use regulation revision process has been completed. And so that is the Q&A. So right now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to open it up to people who have comments about the land use regulations other than hunting or carrying firearms. Please raise your hand. And Neil will ask you to unmute yourself.
Okay, we have our first hand raised. And it is Andrea. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening. This is Andrea Adams. Just a quickie. What's geocaching?
Geocaching is this recreational activity where you go out and you put these little treasures somewhere. It's also called letterboxing. And you put these little treasures out of sight, usually somewhere in the property, and then you have to take and use orienteering skills to go out and find the objects. Thank you, Andrea. Other comments or questions? Bill Mish.
Bob, this is Bill Mish, 29 Meadow Lane. I'd like to volunteer to help put those signs up you got money for.
When we're done with the regulation review, I hope to take and put an article in the Lunenburg Ledger and use Facebook and social media to take and advertise that. And I'll be looking for volunteers, and I appreciate your volunteering. But I'm not going to start that process until we get this land use regulation revision behind us.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out. Otherwise, I don't use Facebook, so I'll keep an eye.
But there'll be. Do you get the Lunenburg Ledger?
Rarely.
Okay.
Just occasionally.
All right. Well, I'm writing it down, Bill, and I'll reach out to you.
Sounds good.
All right. Other comments or questions about other than hunting?
We have one more hand raised.
Andrea Adams again.
Hey, thanks. Maybe you could just put a quick notice on the Concom page for other people who don't use Facebook or get the ledger.
And actually, there is a something on the Facebook page right now, but I have to reorganize that and make it more user friendly.
What I mean is put it on the Conservation Commission page so they can look at it, seeking volunteers like you had the draft management regs. And by the way, congratulations for a very nice job on the regs.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions about anything with the land use regulations other than hunting and the possession of firearms? Then I'd open it up to people who have comments or questions about the use of firearms or hunting with firearms. I mean, the possession of firearms or, you know what I mean. Andrea Lanford, LaFord. I'm sorry, LaFord. Sorry, I butchered your last name. Oh, she put her hand down. Where'd you go?
I just muted myself, so maybe that's what happened.
Oh,
So I just want to clarify. So the possession of firearms is only permitted for the use of hunting? Is that correct?
right now, are you talking about in the draft regs or in the
In the
current?
draft regulations, the two properties where it's proposed that you're going to allow hunting, the possession of firearms will only be allowed for the purposes of hunting. Is that correct?
I don't believe that's correct.
Oh.
I don't believe that's correct. I think it allows the possession of firearm. The current draft allows the possession of firearms. You know, like if you had a concealed carry permit or something like that, you'd be able to, you know, carry it onto the conservation lands.
Hmm.
Other comments or questions about hunting or fire? Jane Duvall. Neil, yeah, go
Is
ahead.
that good? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I just have a couple of questions about your overview, which thank you for that, because it did clarify some of the changes. On the area where you said it was open space land, that's not subject to the rules and regulations of conservation. I think there was like 111 acres and 66 acres. I didn't get to write them all down. But is that firearm hunting allowed on that open space land? If it's not subject to?
Well, it's subject to the same rules as that all the other town land, in that in order to discharge a firearm, you have to go to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
And get permission. But yes, there are no regulations, to my
Okay.
knowledge. And you know,
Okay.
someone can maybe correct. To my knowledge, there are zero regulations, land use regulations for the use of the land that is under the care and control of the Board of Selectmen.
So as long as if the board says yes and they follow the regular rules that you highlighted, 500 feet and all that, they can firearm hunt there, right?
Correct.
Perfect. I just have two other questions. You mentioned the small town forest and the Huntington Hill Forest. They abut each other. I know they both
No,
abut
no,
towns.
they do not abut each
Okay.
other. There
They
is,
don't. Okay.
they do not abut each other.
They both abut Townsend.
Yes, they
Don't
both,
abut each other.
there is a larger Hunting Hills wildlife management area
You're right.
in Townsend, but which is different from the Hunting Hills, you know, conservation restriction in Lunenburg.
Right. So if I was going to Hunting Hills, could I get, without going through Townsend, could I get to Small Town Forest?
No,
From hunting? No, you have to go through private property to do that.
yeah, or you have to go up
Up to
into,
Townsend and
up
around.
into Townsend,
Okay.
and there is a trail that connects, by which over state land you can get from the Small Town Forest to the Hunting Hills Conservation Land.
But yeah, but they don't connect directly without going through Townsend.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
There's your neighbor there, whose name is
Womble.
Womble owns the property in between.
Right. And the other thing is the highlight, when you highlighted the important rules of hunting to help people who are non-hunters, I noticed you didn't mention tree stands, but tree stands falls in that too, right? That they have to come out, because I know when we first talked about the regulations, people were concerned about the tree stands being an issue.
And if you take and you look, I believe that was put back into the regulations.
Okay, just because it wasn't highlighted, I didn't have a chance to go through all the regulations. Okay, so that 30-day or end of season tree stand rule still stands.
And that is a state regulation.
Yep, yep.
I mean, whether we have it in our regulations or not, it's still a regulation. But
Yeah,
I believe we did put it in our regulations.
yeah, you did. I just didn't see you highlight it, so I just was wondering
Yeah.
that. So, all right. And I noticed that in the Q&A, which I noticed you addressed most of them, on the enforcement piece, I still am a little confused about how the process will work for non-compliance. I know it said you go to the commission, but if it's outside of commission hours, I mean, are the police gonna have the authority to respond, or?
Yes, they are.
Okay,
The Matt Morrow and I had a really excellent meeting with the police chief and the assistant police chief of police. And they were very supportive of enforcing our regulations.
okay. So if it's outside of commission hours, and we would call the police or the fire department, depending what the issue is?
I would think you would probably call the police, unless someone has a fire or something like that, is not permitted.
So it's really going to be the oversight is really going to be by the residents. There's not any proactive oversight type of.
I mean, are we going to patrol
Yeah.
our conservation lands to enforce these regulations?
Check to make sure they have the right license, that they don't have the guns loaded on the street. I mean, is there any processes for that?
No,
Okay.
no. The only people who have the resources to do that is the state, and they tend to focus on state lands.
And so if we tried to call the EPO to ask them to come check a license, they wouldn't respond.
I'm sorry, you got me there. What's the EPO?
I meant the environmental police, that the people that work on the state lands. If we were to call them, would they?
Well,
respond?
I would think they would respond. I can tell you that where I live, we had somebody baiting deer on our land, and we called the environmental police, and they came right away.
Okay, because we've heard of issues when they said they didn't have anybody to send and to call the Lunenburg police, and this was before this all happened. This all came for conversation. The Lunenburg police showed up and said they couldn't really do anything. So I'm just trying to understand, where I live directly across the street, 10 feet from the parking in the small town forest, I'm going to see everything every day. And that's bothersome to me. And I know that, harassing hunters is illegal. So we have to be very careful to ask any questions, because it could be turned, the page, could be turned. So I'm just trying to clarify the whole process if this passes, which I hope it doesn't, but just trying to clarify some of those unknowns. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jane. Other questions or comments from members of the public? Bob Walton.
Good evening. Bob Walton, Whalen Road. So I had a question. I'm looking at the regulations online, and it's the one on your site says, I believe I'm looking at the right one. It says April 7th, 2021 draft regulations.
Yep.
Is that the most current one?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I know there's been a lot of iterations of this. So I just wanted to be clear for hunting and firearms. So from what I read, the term about firearms is that you can't use firearms, pellet guns, paint guns, or similar non-lethal weapons on these properties unless exempted elsewhere. And so that's the only thing I see about like carrying of firearms. So I guess that's the first question is there something in this regulation that people who are permitted to carry firearms are not permitted to carry firearms on these lands?
No, there's nothing like that in the new regulations. Our current regulations prohibit the possession of firearms. Our new regulations do not prohibit the possession of firearms. They prohibit the use of firearms.
Okay. So that, in terms of my public, I guess, opinion on it, I believe that to me is a positive change to this. I believe if you're licensed to carry a firearm, you should be licensed. You should be allowed to carry on these lands. I mean, for various reasons, for personal protection from, let's say a woman walking alone in the woods to I don't know what kind of, and we obviously have bears in this town, but so in terms of hunting, this is, I think originally in previous versions of this was adding hunting to multiple properties. So we're now talking about adding firearm hunting to the small town forest and the northwest town forest. Those are just the only two ones that we're considering adding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And and there's no regulation in here about calibers or anything like that, right? It's not limiting that. If you're able to hunt with it, by the hunting regulations, there's no specific rules being put on about that.
No.
So in terms of hunting, I'm not a hunter, but I do personally respect people's right to hunt, and not everybody can afford to go to the grocery store. And I did grow up in New Jersey, and there's not a lot of hunting allowed in New Jersey, and it's a part of rural New Jersey, and you cannot go out on any given night without seeing deer everywhere. They sleep in your yard, you're constantly in the road, and lots of roadkill. So I would just caution, if you allow these populations to grow too much, they seem pretty in the woods when you're looking at them, but they're not so pretty when they're in front of your headlights. And it's so common in New Jersey to have deer strikes there because of the lack of hunting regulations. So I would support it. I think it's a controlled way to add some hunting without sort of carte blanche everywhere allowing hunting. So I think it's a good first step. So that's it. I appreciate all the work you guys have put into this.
Thank you, Bob. Todd Whittier.
Yeah, I have a question.
Todd, where do you live?
519 Bird Street in Lunenburg.
Thank you.
So I have a question. It kind of piggybacks onto that gentleman's. I've spoken enough about hunting. I've rallied a little bit of some of the participants tonight. My question is kind of related to the advertisement that's got a lot of misrepresentation on page 4 of the ledger. But my question is, there's a non-binding referendum spoken about, and I think that gentleman was trying to kind of ask about that. If there is a vote taken at the town meeting that directs the Lunenburg Conservation Commission to prohibit the possession of firearms, will the town's Conservation Commission have to act and prohibit the possession of firearms on conservation property? And I think that's what the gentleman before me was trying to get at. That's his question. And
why don't you talk about your
question
question and not talk about somebody else's question?
Well, that's exactly my question too. Is that this whole thing that people have signed on page 4 kind of is asking that, and that's what I'm asking.
So Todd, I will give you my personal opinion on that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's fine. I'll take that.
I think first of all, it's a non-binding resolution. They're asking for a non-binding referendum because the sole authority to pass land use regulations resides with the Conservation Commission. Town meeting has, no authority over land use regulations. And so, I think this entire move to take and have a non-binding referendum at town meeting is misguided. I've said to several people who are, participating in that effort that if they want to take and do something, what they should do is take and propose a bylaw that would ban the possession of firearms and ban firearm hunting, on all town properties, because we also have the other town properties that are not, regulated by and under the care and control of the Conservation Commission. And so, it's my personal opinion, and that's all it is. I can't represent the commission as a whole, that, it's an inappropriate legislative move. Did I answer your question, Todd?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Katie Adams.
Hi, Katie Adams, Peninsula Drive. And just a couple brief comments. One in regards to things that were most recently mentioned with firearm possessions in hunting versus possession. I feel like it'd be easier for everyone if those two things were separated. The citizen petition article basically asks to keep things the same, which possession is currently not allowed. So it basically keeps it as is. And then I feel like it would be easier for the community and for everyone if it was two separate topics, because being opposed to hunting in these spaces and being opposed to somebody's right to carry are two substantially different things that I don't see how you can connect them at all. I may feel very, very comfortable with people having a license to carry for a variety of reasons and not want to get involved with that. Whereas I may say, I just don't see that hunting is a good fit for conservation land. And so I feel like those things should be separated in regards to the Conservation Commission's approach on the topic. And they've gotten overlapped a lot in a way that I think is hard to discuss. In regards to the citizen petition article, when I've tried to learn more about it myself, it's really not saying take away people's rights to have a firearm. It's saying keep things the same. Currently, they are not allowed. And so I think my primary comment in regards to anybody who's not familiar with the citizen petition article process, and in regards to the idea of whether or not they're appropriate, a lot of times they're used as a way to try to create communication and voice when people feel they don't have one. I created a citizen petition article on a different topic years ago, and whether it was non-binding or not, et cetera, it was an opportunity to try to show that there was a need for communication. And I think that's the important thing we're seeing here. We've all, those of us who have been to a lot of meetings, there could be one attendee, 0 attendees meeting after meeting. And then you have a topic like this or a topic like Rob's Hill Forest where so many people come out, and then you're onto something really important. And when people are carving out ways to try to communicate, like making articles and paying for ads, there's something that they're trying to say. And I think the most important thing is that whatever happens here, the commission is really aware of what the community is trying to ask for, because ultimately it's their land, it's our land, and everybody is seeking recreation now. Not everybody, but people are seeking recreational spaces now more than they ever have. And it just feels like an awkward time for a change. Any of these changes might be warranted in the future, but right now these places are packed with people trying to seek comfort and peace. And I don't know why we're working on this right now. Thank you.
Jack Rabbit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jack is a member of the commission, for those of you. Go ahead, Jack.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just to clarify a little bit with regard to the question in terms of the binding resolution. We as a board, as Bob had outlined, have been working on this for quite a while. We had a number of hearings, and the Conservation Commission received quite a number of letters. And the letters against any kind of the changes ran about 6-1 against the changes that are being proposed with regard to hunting and such. Unfortunately, we have members on the team who chose to pursue, they had another thought. The reason why this group, and folks out there, you can correct me or wrong, essentially, Conservation Commission has two hats. One is the wetland protection hat. We have the DEP, in which a citizen can go and petition against. When it comes to land use, It's just conservation. So the only outlet that they really have is to go for a non-binding resolution to wake the town up, and hopefully the town speaks clearly to the members, and hopefully the members will take the voice of the town to account. That's the reason for this. It's not misguided. And honestly, if we had in our first early discussions, the issue of taking up a townwide resolution was not brought up as something available to us. So, and this it's nothing illegal. It's just a vehicle for waking up the town and bringing them together and trying to create a voice that the Conservation Commission will respond to. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the moment.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have anybody else that's new before I call on Todd again? Because I don't really want to take and do debates during this public hearing. But I'll be happy to call on Todd if no one else has a comment. Mark Birch.
Mr. Chairman, first I want to thank the board for all their work. I had a question. I've lived in town for over 50 years. That puts me a little over 50 years old. And I grew up and I hunted on a number of conservation lands as a kid. So I'm curious, when the land use regulation that you have currently was developed, was there a reason that hunting was stricken from all the conservation lands?
I can't tell you that. I can tell you, I believe people went back and tried to research, looking for minutes and stuff from 2011, 2012, when these regulations supposedly were adopted. And there is a lack of a public record that shows, there were no public hearings, like we're having now. There's not a lot in the minutes, that shows when they were adopted. And there's nothing about the discussion. So I personally can't answer that. And I wasn't even I was living in town, but I wasn't on the commission in 2011. So I can't answer that.
Okay. The other question I had, Mr. Chairman, when the current regulations you're following came in, that was about 20 years ago. Am I correct?
Yeah, 2011, 2012 or 2011. So about 10 years ago.
Okay. And the amount of land acquired by the conservation's control since then, hasn't it been pretty substantial?
Well, there's the Lane property in Table Rock, Saliba, and I believe the Hirsch property. And I'm not sure what else. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay. So my point being is there was no significant event to ban hunting in the first place. As a hunter, I would like to have as many lands opened to myself as possible. I think the board has done a great job in trying to come to some sort of a compromise for everybody. And that's really what I was trying to make my point in my discussion with you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep. Thank you.
Richard Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify your point on the lack of any documentation on the 2011 current regulations that we have. I was the one that had done the research. There is no mention in any agenda of any public meeting or discussion on the land use regulations that we are currently following. There was, going through the minutes, there was never any discussion again about the land use regulations. More troubling to me, I couldn't find anywhere in any of the minutes where there was any discussion or vote to formally approve the land use regulations. Furthermore, there was one mention of passing out updated regulations in March of 2011. The only version that we seem to have a copy of right now is a draft copy from January of 2011. So in my opinion, I don't think that we have to be very careful in calling the 2011 land use regulations that we have truly legal. We don't know what was approved. We don't know if anything was approved. There was no public meeting. And we don't even have a final copy of whatever may have been presented. So I just wanted to clarify that where I had done the research on it. And I also had asked the agent, Matt Morrow, to go back through and see if he could find anything else, and he was unable to find anything. I do see he is here now, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. Todd Whittier. Oh, let me unmute you 1 second. Go ahead, Todd.
Thanks. Again, 519 Burr Street. I reiterate exactly what I believe Mark Bursch said, the same thing. I think that the commission's done a great job in acquiring land. I think what alarmed a lot of the hunters and has alarmed myself and a few other hunters in this area is, again, that article in page 4, it didn't do a lot of good. So I think to Katie's point, I think, yes, she's right. I believe that these are two separate issues, I believe. But when you do have an article that says that you want to suppress hunting and you want to suppress permit to carry, these are both two hot button items right now in these times. And this is exactly what has gotten people fired up. So I think the commission's done a great job. We want to the hunting community wants to make sure that we're represented well. And I think that's what got a lot of us fired up, and we're concerned. We don't want to see what we've worked hard to save and to carry on to our future. So that's why we're just so concerned. And that's why you're seeing the outpour that you're seeing. So we just want to make sure that we're well represented, and that's why we're concerned. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Are there any other comments or questions from members of the public? Todd, I'm going to lower your hand. Wow. If there are no other comments or, Jane Duvall. Jane, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay, did I do it?
You did.
Okay, thank you. I just have, I think we've said everything we have to say, and I appreciate Katie's comments because that's exactly the intent. So I'm glad she said what she said, and everybody heard why we've done it. I think the part that troubles me, I mean, of course, I live directly across the street from hunting a small town forest, and my mailbox is right on the parking lot. So I'm going to have to live with this for the next whatever, as long as I live. I've been here 40 years, 50 years in town. But on the April 7th meeting, this is really to Rich Bursch, a comment was made that with all of the input, the emails, and all the letters that were sent to the commission, he didn't see one compelling reason why this shouldn't pass. And I find it hard to believe that out of almost 100 emails and even the signatures on the paper, that not one compelling reason why it shouldn't pass. Like everything that everybody said doesn't matter, or it wasn't compelling enough. All of your concerns, from a compliance standpoint, from a safety standpoint, from, enjoying recreation, the locations. This is not a sparse neighborhood. This is a very well, anybody's come down Milpas Road the last 3 decades knows it's very well built up. Houses are being built every day. It's used not just for conservation, but just the roads used a lot for biking and horseback riding. And where the parking is situated, you don't even have to go into conservation land to have to encounter a hunter. They park right there. The entrances are right on the road. So I'm wondering why he would make that statement. Maybe he can.
Please direct all your comments to the chair.
Okay, and who's the chair? That would be you. No, who's the chair? Yep. Yeah. So anyway, that's my comment. Like, how can he justify that? Not one compelling reason out of almost 100 emails.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Richard Bursch.
I'm not going to go into a discussion again. I think at that meeting, my answer was very full of information as to why I was making the decision I made. I don't want to take up a whole lot of time and going into it. Just a couple big parts of that where there are lands that are very close to those for the public to use. Again, a quarter mile down the street from small town is Cowdrey, and just about across the street from the northwest parcel is the new Saliva Table Rock property. So those that don't want to be on the lands that are hunted on certainly have 17 other parcels in town that they can use. Hunters don't. If we're barred from those two, that just leaves the small piece up on Hunting Hill. I also went into the lands that had been lost over my lifetime to hunters that was private land, and a lot of the larger parcels became part of the Conservation Commission, and we lost the ability to hunt on them. So those were some of the reasons as to why I am pushing forward with this. I also stated we're a town of 10,000 people. 250 of those residents have purchased licenses in 2019, have gone through the education process, and we have 100 some odd people that are against it. So basically it's the two fringes. So I think that without hearing from more than 100 or so people, I find it hard to bar the other end of the spectrum from using those two parcels where you do have opportunities to use 17 other parcels in town. And at this point, I haven't seen anything, unless Jack or somebody has something for me that shows that you're any safer on lands that are not hunted on as lands that you are hunted on. Jack had in his proposal or his slideshow when he gave it, quote from the National Wildlife Federation that stated that in the United States and Canada, there were only about 70 hunting fatalities, and that's over 370 million people. So, I mean, it is a statistically zero chance. So again, I haven't seen any, in my opinion, I haven't seen any reasoning as to stop that hunting on or pull back my proposal for the hunting on those two properties.
Thank you,
Mr.
Richard.
Chair.
All right, Jack Rabbit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman again. Rich, thank you. Thank you so much. I'd just like to point out that we, in addition to the properties that are currently available to hunt, there are also state and trust properties that sit. The Willard Brook within Lunenburg is another 127 acres. The Turner Pond Conservation is another 30 acres. There's another 21 acres in the Peabody Conservation. So it's not like we're limited. All I know is you can park in two different places in Lunenburg, and you have 4 to 5 miles of contiguous hunting. Point number one. Point number two, Rich, with regard, and you and I—
Please direct your comments to the chair.
Okay, excuse me, Mr. Chief. And by the way, Rich is a good friend of mine, and I love the guy. So anyway, the point of it is that essentially when we look at that data, Rich, right, and roughly between US and Canada, there are 1,000 people a year shot, right, by hunters, and they're generally other hunters. When you go to look for data that looks at how many people, civilians, hikers were shot by hunters, you can't even really find it, except for the two father-daughter that were killed a couple of years ago. You can't find it because nobody goes into those areas when there's hunting, so they don't want to get shot, and they make sure they don't get. Otherwise, you'd see numbers comparable.
Your opinion, if it's not facts in writing, it's your
That's
opinion.
deductive reasoning that's logical.
It's your opinion.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to go back to public comment. Andrea Adams. I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to ask you to unmute one here. Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay, very charged topic. I would just say that based on the research that I quickly did while you were discussing it, be very wary of prohibiting the possession of firearms. Massachusetts has some of the strictest firearms regulations in the country. Also, I've noted that both the state and several municipalities or state agencies, including Department of Fish and Wildlife, say that towns can prohibit the discharge, specifically of firearms, within their borders, but they cannot prohibit the possession because that's granted by licensure. So you can't have two state agencies in conflict. In other words, the municipal regulation, and then get a valid firearm ID or a class license for hunting. So I would agree that the two issues are distinct and separate. I think clarifying the regulations in and of themselves is very useful. It makes a difference between what's allowed on conservation land and who you have to ask, what's allowed on owner property, which is typically residence property. Then you have the Conservation Commission land, which the conservation owns and controls. So you'd have to ask them, and land under the care and custody of the select board. I think it's very critical from the perspective of having a debate on these various issues to have regulations that at least clarify that. If you want to have a further discussion about whether or not you should prohibit the discharge of firearms within the municipal borders, I think that's what you should do, because the regulations as they're written right now, I think if somebody really wanted to, they could challenge them. And that may or may not be something, unless you're prepared to vote on the regulations today, you want to check with town council.
Before I call on someone else, I would just make the comment that we did check with town council. These regulations have been to town council probably 3 or 4 times, maybe even 5. And he has vetted everything that's in these regulations. I'm going to call next on Andrea Lanford. Oops. Well, I lost you, Andrea. I got to unmute.
Right here.
Oh, you good? Okay, good.
Andrea Lanford, Pleasant Street. I'd just like to make 2 points, and I hope I can make them quickly. First of all, there was a comment made about the number of hunters versus the number of people who wrote in to make objections. The number of hunters, that's a known quantity. The number of people who wrote emails objecting is not necessarily the number of people who do object. It's just the people who actually wrote emails. And I think that we will find out in town meeting just how many more people might feel about the new proposed regulations. My other point is that there was a comment made that if people don't want to walk in conservation land that allows hunting, there are other properties available to them. But I just wanted to make the point that there are people who live near those properties, and these people are affected by these new proposed regulations anyway. They could go somewhere else, but it's still on their doorstep. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom Alonso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 3 quick points. First, to one of the previous speakers who questioned whether the current land use policy of not allowing gun possession on properties is allowed. That too has been vetted by town council, who says we do have the ability and we do have the right to do that, as just in the same way that you as a private owner would have the right to bar people from coming on your property with a firearm if you did not so choose. So that is not against state law, and it is possible. Number 2, I would say to the comment, and it was just referenced by the previous speaker, of 100 people. I've been involved in this town for a long time, 17, 18 years. I don't know that I've ever seen something that brought 100 people to vocalize this. Maybe I saw something close that came to town meeting at the town select board meeting once or twice, but never 100 or more. And I think the previous speaker is correct in saying that those are people who are adamant enough in their feelings to write, and who knows how many people don't write about it. So I would not trivialize that number. And lastly, I would also comment on the previous speaker who referenced another speaker saying, well, if you don't want to go places where there's hunting, there's nearby places in conservation land you can go. But I would argue, and I have in the past in some of your meetings, that the flip side is true too. There are plenty of places right outside the borders of Lunenburg that allow public hunting. And if you use that logic for people in conservation, you can use that for hunters too. It's like, why allow it when you can go, another quarter of a mile in and go hunting anywhere, somewhere else. So I would offer those as just comments on the conversation so far. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Michelle Taylor.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, this is Michelle Taylor, 257 Howard Street. And I have written in and I've spoken at a previous meeting. And I just want to reiterate, I feel that there's really no compelling reason to me that I've heard through these meetings to increase firearm hunting. It seems we have adequate amount of land for the firearm hunting that we have. I'm not hearing that we actually have a problem with overpopulation of an animal, any species. So those are my feelings. I also want to echo what the previous two speakers just said in regards to bordering conservation land that may have hunting. I border conservation land. My children go out. I allow them to go on their own, alone. They go quietly into the woods, maybe sit on a rock, meditate, whatever they do. And I would just not feel comfortable if there was hunting in my property right behind my house. And one of the proposed properties is the Northwest Forest, which is going to have a development of 122 houses going in. And again, that's that same situation where I understand hunters are not allowed to shoot within 500 feet, but there could be a little child in the woods just enjoying themselves, enjoying nature, and a hunter would not know that. So to have that land added just doesn't sit well with me, with this proposal of 122 homes with possibly double the amount of children. And that's all I want to say right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michelle. Does anybody else have, anyone else new have an additional comment? Chris Martins.
Good evening, Chairman. How are you tonight?
Good, Chris, please give your
I live on 981 Northfield Road. Actually, I live on the Table Rock property. And Katie Adams, if you want to find Table Rock, I'd be more than happy to show you how to get there. So want to make a couple points here. I'm curious, and I have a question as to, there's been a lot of statistics going back and forth about this many people use the woods, that many people don't use the woods. I won't use the woods if there's hunting allowed because I don't feel safe. And we actually allow hunting in the Hunting Hills area. And I'd be curious if we have statistics. And I asked Mr. Rabbit this the other night and he didn't answer me. I don't know if he knows, but how many people use the Hunting Hills area on a regular basis? Because if people use the Hunting Hills area, which already allows hunting, but they're using the fear factor as a crutch to not allow hunting anywhere else in town, I'd just be curious as to why they would use the Hunting Hills area. I actually made a proposal, and I know it's very far-fetched, but if people won't hunt in the woods, or if people won't use the woods if hunting is allowed, then why don't we make the Hunting Hills area hunting only? Keep the non-hunters out of the woods. It's kind of the flip side of the story. Gives the hunters a private plot of land that they can use that no one else can, And it keeps the hunters out of the rest of the conservation lands that people who don't want hunting in there allowed. So if you look at both sides of the stone, you know, I'm sure people who live in the Hunting Hills area would not want to be told that they couldn't recreate in their conservation land area because it's only allowed for firearm hunting, as much as firearm people don't want to be told that they can't firearm hunt in other areas. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chris. I would just say, we have no data on how many people use each of our properties. And B, we have no control over Hunting Hills. That's why they're not even part of these regulations. They have.
I understand that. It's just a point I was trying to get across that.
And I understand your point. Thank you, Chris. Dennis Fortune.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dennis Fortune, Robs Hill Road in Lunenburg here. So I just wanted to, I guess, chime in here as well. And a few things that I think is often overlooked when thinking about. I use conservation land not only for hunting, but I also use it throughout the rest of the year. I also walk them when it's hunting season, you know, without firearms or bow and arrow or whatever. But it's seasons based, obviously. So there are certain times of the year that you can hunt. I think a lot of times people think about hunting with firearms, or they're thinking about during deer season and stuff where, you know, they're large animals. One of the other comments was, you know, kids, I've got little kids too. They use our conservation land over here in Robs Hill. Obviously that's not topic of conversation, but just for, you know, just to understand, I sympathize with people that are close to the conservation lands that are in conversation tonight. I think that it's important to know that, you know, you do have waterfowl species, other small bird species, things like that people do hunt. And you can't hunt them unless you use firearms because you can't use bow and arrow for those. I also like to say that the more land that is sold within Lunenburg or developed, the less private land there is available for hunters to use. And lastly, I think it's important that we all remember that conservation land that is here is for everyone. And people should feel, obviously, should be able to use that land, you know, throughout. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Todd, I'm going to call on you for a third time, but this is going to be about it because you had 3 chances now. Go ahead, Todd. Go ahead, Todd. Todd, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm kind of a pain. I can give you some data real quick. I hunt Hunting Hill 3 seasons. I also hunt Robs Hill. My children use the Robs Hill Conservation Area. They use the Burridge Conservation Area. And my other comment is to Tom Alonso's point. My only question is, my tax dollars paid for some of this conservation land. So why would I have to go out of town? That's my only point. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd. If there are no other comments, I'd like to close this hearing. We have 7 other hearings we have to have tonight. If you're taking a look at the agenda, you'll see farther on down on the agenda, it says a deliberation of land use policy under old business. We have 1 member who is not here tonight. But I have to try and figure out when he's coming back. He's off on a camping trip. And if he's not coming back for a long time, we may proceed tonight. If he's coming back sooner, I'm willing to wait, a meeting or so, but not longer than that. So, because I'd love to take and have the vote with the full board, but I'm not going to wait till July to do so. So, thank you very much. I'm going to, Jack Rabbit. Go ahead,
Jack, you're
Jack.
muted. He's muted.
I'll ask him to unmute.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that if your intent would be to vote on finalizing these land use regulations before we heard what the town had to say with regard to the non-bonding resolution, is that your intent?
Yeah.
So you don't really care what the town's going to tell you?
Those are your words, Jack, not
Well,
mine.
I'm putting it to you straight, Bob. Are we as a group willing to ignore the input that you just saw 110 signatures and you're going to come back and not want to listen to the town meeting? I can't. No, we can't do that, Bob. We can't do that.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay.
Bob Walton. Bob Walton.
Yep, sorry, didn't let me unmute right away. So in terms of the prior comment, one of the problems with this article, as pointed out by a few people, is this article is talking about hunting and carrying firearms. And, this, unless somebody amends this at town meeting, it's sort of meaningless, I think, the way it's written. Because you may get people who are against it because of one particular topic, but doesn't care about the other topic. So to me, this petition it's not really going to guide you because, as Katie Adams pointed out, these should be really two separate issues. So, and it is, as you pointed out, the non-binding resolution. And it's the non-binding requesting that the Lunenburg Conservation restrict. So, blah blah blah. So, I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Bob. Lynn Mann.
Hi, Lynn Mann, 463 Burridge Street. I just want to agree with Bob Walton's comment and Katie Adams' comment that I see this as two separate issues as well, and it would affect my vote whether they're voted on together or separately. That's all.
Thank you, Lynn. Are there any other comments? Going once, going twice. I'm going to close this public hearing. Thank you, everyone, for their participation and their caring and their thoughtfulness. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now to the first of our other 7 public hearings. So thank you. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, in the town of Lunenburg Wetland Protections and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Bill Farabee will be held. Work proposes the replacement of a septic system within 100 feet of a wetland resource area at 9 Bootwell Street. Is Mr. Farabee or someone else representing him here tonight? Please raise your hand.
Bob, I think Doug Smith was supposed to be here representing.
Yeah, he's here. I see him talking, but he's muted.
What's his name?
Doug
Smith.
Smith.
I'm going to unmute him. Doug, I'm asking you to unmute, Doug.
Hey, Bob?
Yeah.
Just wanted to say apologies for being late. I had to reset my router.
Okay, thank you. Doug, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. So this is a replacement septic system on 9 Bothwell Road. It's two-bedroom house, and I can maintain 44 feet from the banking, the BVW that's been mapped, flags A1 through A9. We've got the 30-foot no disturb zone, and a little bit after that is where the waters will go in.
Okay, so
and
Doug?
then- Yes,
Oh, give me a moment and I'll try to call up your plan
okay.
so everyone at home can see it. Let's see. I bet you. Aha, I think I found it. Let's share the screen. Oh, that's the wrong Zoom. Here we go.
Michael?
Yeah. Let's rotate this thing. And let's blow it up a little more. Is this what you want to see, Doug?
Yes, yep.
All right, so take us through it.
All right, it's a existing two-bedroom home. It's being sold, did not pass the Title V. The existing septic system is very close to the wetlands down on the very bottom of the hill. So what I designed was where the system could fit in between the wetlands and the well that's in the front yard. There is pavement and an existing deck behind the house, and then it starts dropping off fairly steep. So I have the proposed septic system. It's exactly 44 feet from the resource area. The entire wall that will have to be built is out of the 30-foot no disturb zone. And basically, it's really the only place you can fit replacement septic system on this property. So I think I did everything to maximize what I could to get something in there for the people.
Any comments or questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Richard?
Doug, has this gone before the Board of Health and been approved?
It's being reviewed by the Board of Health now. I'll be going to the next meeting that is available. And Jim Gareffi from the Board of Health is reviewing it.
Okay.
But it has not completely gone through to get approved yet, no.
And so Doug, I would suggest then that we hold a hearing tonight, see what comments commissioners have, but we continue it in case you have to change it, you know, through the Board of Health process. Would you be good with that?
Yes, I guess we'd have to do that, yep.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Any questions or comments from the public? Andrea Adams.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I think I am muted. Yeah. My only question is the distance from the well to the septic system. Is that distance required to keep the septage from going to the well, even though it looks like if the flow is toward the wetland? In other words, could you move? Yep, go ahead. Sorry.
Although it's 78 feet from the well to the septic area, it's supposed to be 100. The well is upslope, but it's still something that I have to go through the Board of Health to get the variance passed. And Trying to split the difference between the wetland area and that it was the intent.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Or the public? Then Doug, I think it would be in your best interest if we continued this to our next meeting, which is on May 5th. And hopefully by then you will have heard from the Board of Health. You think you'll be done with the Board of Health by then?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
So I'm looking for a motion to continue this until May 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Ken Jones,
Aye.
Rich Birsch,
Aye.
Katie Childs,
Aye.
Jack Rabbit. No Jack Rabbit. Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. Thank you.
Jack's muted, by the way, Mr. Chair.
Oh, Jack's muted. All right, let's find him. I'm trying to find him so I can unmute him.
While he's doing that, Rich, it was you that made the motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I get it right on the minute notes here.
Thank you, Bob. Yes.
Thank you, Jack. All right, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Christopher and Suzanne DeGeorge will be held. Work proposes to improve access to Lake Shirley and control of erosion within 100 feet of a wetland resource area at 48 Pearl Street. Is there someone here representing the DeGeorges? Please raise your hand so I can unmute you.
I think Chris Anderson from Hannigan is supposed to be here.
He has his hand raised.
Ah, look at that. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Chris.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Great.
Let me see if I can find your plan. Do you have a plan?
Thank you. Yeah, there should be a plan that was submitted.
Okay, let's see. It must be this one that's 13 megs. Let's reduce it down. You know what page I want to go to in this thing, Chris?
That would be the actual notice of intent package. There should be a second file that shows the actual plan set itself.
Yeah, I think it's labeled flood, Bob.
Yeah.
What's it labeled?
Flood.
Flood.
SDP flood.
Oh. I got fooled by the name. I looked at it and said, oh, that's a delineation of the flood area. I don't want that.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Let's blow this up to 100%. Let's bring it back down to 75%. And let's share the screen. Take us through it.
Perfect. All right. Just for the record, Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering here on behalf of Christopher and Suzanne DeGeorge for work at a single-family home at 48 Pearl Street. Just to orientate ourselves here, we have Lake Shirley to the left side of the page, and then the house located in approximately the center portion of the property, with Pearl Street off to the right-hand side of the site. To say before, property currently contains a single-family home. The topography of the site is unique, where the house is centered on a high point of the property, and the slope of the land drops off greatly towards the east towards Pearl Street, as well as to the west towards Lake Shirley. The area between the house and the lake is where the primary work is going to be performed. Currently, this area is a mixture of tall trees and low-growing brush along the slope, with the immediate area around the lake being a relatively flat area that's been used as a recreational area. Currently, the slope or the shoreline is stabilized with a mixture of natural stone and concrete block, which has started to deteriorate over time due to just general use and poor construction methods of the time. In order to gain access to this area, there's an existing stone and timber walkway that comes from the house and traverses down the slope towards the shoreline as well. So the project encompasses several aspects to help mitigate the erosion on the property and to gain better usability of the recreational area from a safety perspective and an erosion perspective. The intent that we install an elevated wooden deck system within the existing footprint of the stairwell system that's there now. This system would be elevated above the ground, and with the steps being removed and the land generally smoothed out and graded with crushed stone put underneath. This will help alleviate some of the safety concerns because right now the stairs are in a state of disrepair and are starting to rot and erode away, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to get down to the recreational area. So that's one of the perspectives that's going to be performed. And then once we get down to the lower portion of the site, that's where a lot of the work is going to be performed. As I stated earlier, the existing shoreline is starting to erode just due to the natural course of nature and the construction methods of the time of when that was all put in. So it's the intent that we remove the existing concrete block and stone areas in its entirety at this point in time and replace with a new naturalized stone retaining wall system that will be placed along the exact same footprint as the existing retaining wall, if you will, along the shoreline to provide a more permanent form of stabilization. This wall will be at a commensurate height as it exists now, and the land immediately behind it, essentially the recreational area, will be just flattened out, any ruts and everything taken care of, and the area loamed and seeded for permanent stabilization. That's one of the major components of the site. The third aspect that's critical to helping erosion issues is that the fact that the site used to contain several old timber retaining walls, which have since deteriorated and fallen down. There are remnants of it still on the property, but this retaining wall system was once upon a time holding back part of the slope, and now since that's given away, the site along the immediate recreational area started to erode further. So it's the intent that we install a new block retaining wall system, which will encompass essentially from an existing shed south towards the abutting property, with the intent that it would sit within the existing footprint of the original retaining wall and capture or hit the grade so that we're able to gently smooth out the land above it to a commensurate slope that the site currently is at now. In order to make the grade work and to prevent any further erosion. This wall would continue along the southerly side of the stairwell system as well. There is erosion in this area, but there's no evidence of an historic wall, even though there is a cut of erosion that's starting to form in this area as well. So as part of that, that'll help to capture some of the erosion that's currently existing on the site. In order to facilitate the construction of these walls and retaining wall systems, several large trees will have to be cut down. Approximately 7 trees on the slope will be removed, with 4 of them being within the 30-foot no-touch zone. So to compensate for the loss of trees, we're proposing to plant an additional 8 deciduous trees throughout the property to help compensate for that area as well. Pretty much upon the completion of construction, everything will be loamed and seeded for permanent stabilization with a more naturalized grass seed mix that can be coordinated with the conservation agent when it gets to that point in time. One of the more major concerns that we have relative to the constructability of the site is the fact that the slope is excessively steep and very dangerous to traverse and probably would be very inhibitive to do construction. So it would be requested from the commission that during the low periods of the lake drawdown during the wintertime, that we actually utilize a small portion of the actual lake bed that's drawn down. As you can see on the plan now, we did locate the limit of the water during low period in the middle of December. So as you can see, the water level drops drastically in this area. So there's plenty of room in order to access this area from Flat Hill Road to the north in order to gain access to this area. This would obviously be done during low periods of water. And additional erosion sediment barriers would also be installed along its entire length during the course of construction. We did talk with a few contractors. It's anticipated that only small vehicles would be utilized for this construction. There wouldn't be any heavy machinery in order to facilitate the actual installation of the retaining wall systems throughout the site. That's pretty much the gist of the project. We have not received DEP comment at this time, so we know this project or the hearing would be continued to the next. But if there's any questions from the commission, and if there was a site walk that would be desired to review the site to see, show what we're actually doing on the property, it'd be very advantageous, I believe, for the commission to see what's going on the property.
And so I'm just going to run through these photos that were taken by one of our members this past Saturday during a site visit.
Yep.
Can people see these on the screen now?
Yep.
So this would be the existing stairwell. And then
Is
you
that
can see
also
this
the
is
existing stairwell?
That's the existing stairwell. So the wooden stairwell system would be essentially in that same exact footprint, with the exception of the last, I believe, 10 or 12 feet of it, which will be actually pitched or directed away from the current little beach area they have right there. Because right now, as you go down the steps, the last step is essentially into the lake. For safety reasons, we've actually decided to pitch that towards the shed area of the property, in order to make sure that nobody inadvertently falls into the lake. And as you can see right here, this is the evidence of the old retaining wall system that was on the property. And you can see that the grade immediately along the recreational area has started to erode. And we believe that's dedicated, or primarily because an old retaining wall has been degraded and has fallen apart. So it's the intent that a new block wall would essentially connect or tie into that first level of erosion, capture that, and then the backside of the site would be smoothed out to prevent any of the velocity gradient changes you're seeing here. As you can see from the upper part of the picture there, the soil is actually being undercut by the vegetation because an old tree was probably there at some point in time. So in order to eliminate that vector for erosion, we would essentially fill that back portion and smooth it out so that it's a nice gentle slope, and then that would be stabilized with the biodegradable mat and then seating, which would remain in place. And you can see here again some of the erosion issues. We believe probably because an old retaining wall system or tree had fallen down, and the erosion is just cascading down upon itself. And that would be the erosion issues that we're seeing now.
All right. Any comments or questions from commissioners? John Rabbit.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Carl and I had gone out with the property with Matt, and I wish Carl was here because I can't walk down the stairs, but he was able to see it, as well as Matt. You and he were pointing things out, and we did have a question. Are all those trees necessary? Is there some way we can save them? Because the interpretation is that these trees are really holding this hill together. And is there another approach we could use, especially with regard to the stairway and such? Matt, give me your feedback. We really honestly discuss in detail. I know that.
Honestly, I think the site photos pretty much speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. The staircase is in really rough shape.
Yeah. No.
It does need to be replaced, no doubt about it. The biggest issue I see on that property relative to that whole site is basically what Chris touched on. you have a cascading erosion effect on that site. And I noted, Chris, on your plans, you had a tree removal and replanting plan detailed on that. That needs to be examined. Carl and I had talked on site about perhaps having an arborist take a look at the trees that are on site and the ones that you're proposing to be removed and the ones that you're proposing to stay. That could wind up modifying what you're doing on site. Some of those trees that you're proposing to stay may actually need to be replaced and vice versa. Thing about the particulars on that site that make it very unique, and I've encountered this before, is that as far as the very mature trees that are on site, the root systems tend to actually adapt to being in the hillside. But some don't. Some will grow very big and they will still have a shallow but widespread root ball. And I think an arborist could probably best determine that. And I say this, you know, especially since we do have some time, as DEP didn't have any comments at the moment. There's no file number, as you had stated, on site. That could help on the construction technique and the stabilization technique on this site. So, I mean, that's my basic Reader's Digest input. Hopefully it wasn't confusing, but I also agree with Chris that members that didn't go on the site might benefit from going on the site. It's a beautiful spot. It's a very unique site with a lot of attributes and a lot of work that does need to be done. But the sloping and the way the land is tiered is going to make this work pretty intense. So how we condition an order, I think, is going to be critical, both the protection of the wetland and the applicant. So that's my 2.5 cents.
Thank you, Matt.
With the walls.
Anything else, Jack?
No, I would have no problem with the walls. I completely agree with it, with the need for it. It was the concern about the trees in the hill. Thank you.
And Jack, I believe you were copied on an email from Carl where he had some comments.
He did, and I thought he sent it to you and you were going to read them.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to read them.
Why would I do that? I know I get the joke. I get the joke now in terms of when we said hello the other night. Okay.
No. So, let me see if I can find it then.
Okay.
While you're looking for that, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Just a comment. I agree that, you know, looking at the site photos, I wasn't there. But I think a site visit, you know, for this is completely appropriate. And I, you know, would like to get on site. I think for me, it would be helpful if the big trees that are proposed to be removed were flagged and potentially where the replantings were proposed were staked out. And that would be helpful to see when we went back on site.
I totally agree with you, Ken, about both the site visit and the marking of the flags, the trees to be removed, and the marking of the trees, you know, that are going to be planted. So I concur with that.
Through the chair, Chris, again, I would like to be there as well. I think it's a lot, you know, looking at a plan and walking on the site can be kind of cumbersome at times. And I think if I were there, I would really prefer to be there to walk the site with the commission members, just to point out what we're doing and why we're doing that.
Perfect.
Good.
And I can speak to a little bit about the tree removal. A few of the trees on the upper portion of the site, they're in close proximity to the stairwell system, which is why they're being proposed to be removed. Relative to the trees near the retaining wall, due to the constructability of the retaining wall, you kind of have to cut into the slope a little bit. Typically, it's about at the same rate minimum as the height of the wall, so you'll be going in about 4 feet, and then you got to chase the grade up. So some of those trees would unfortunately be, the root system would be damaged by the actual excavation in order to install the retaining wall, which is why we're showing the trees being cut in that lower portion of the site. But we can review these trees on the site and potentially see if we can get an arborist just to confirm the theory of behind everything as well.
I'm just going to read Carl's comments. There's clearly an erosion issue in the steep slope, but he doesn't agree with removing many of the trees that are stabilizing the slope. There are essentially no plantings or undergrowth, which would help stabilize this area. I would encourage some filling and adding of plantings. Of the trees removed, I believe most are okay and can be stabilized. The wall along the lake should be replaced with field stones at a 45-degree angle. There's no wall currently in the lower level south side. A different strategy to stabilize this area should be investigated. The lower wall to the north is or was fairly low, 3 feet. The replacement wall should be the same in the same location. The stairs, as shown, going onto the beach would need the lower retaining wall to be cut back into the further. The homeowner feels this area could be reconfigured and mentioned a deck landing in that area. Matt feels the questions in the tree should be looked at by a peer review professional arborist. I agree with this idea. I have no issues with the stairs except the bottom as mentioned above. So those were Carl's comments. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? So, can you talk?
I do have one.
Go ahead.
Are you going to use sonotubes for the stairs, or are they just going to be 4x4s?
Most likely not, they will be sonotube. Just due to the actual slope, it would be kind of precarious to do anything else. At least at the major hard corners, but once we get into the full construction set for this actual stairwell system itself, I think at that point it would be evaluated. But at this point in time, I would bet on doing sonotubes, at least at the hard corners for the decking or stairwell system.
Okay.
Anything else, Jeff?
No, that was it.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? So, Chris, are you willing to talk to your client about engaging an arborist?
Yep, I can talk to them about that. I think they might have already had one on site, so I will see if they can write up a report as to whether the status of the trees. But I don't foresee that being a concern at this point in time.
And, if you could, mark the trees to be removed and put stakes where you want to do the replantings. And then we can try and schedule a site visit before our next meeting, which is on May 5th. So that'd probably be May something or other, or 1st or 2nd or something like that.
Yeah, that May 2nd, May 1st is the Saturday before, and that's town meeting, so.
Ah. Well, then I have a choice.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. So
did you guys want to do site walks on that Saturday during town meeting, or did you want to do it on Sunday?
I go mountain biking on Sunday. Sunday's sacred.
What time is town meeting?
All day, Jeff, all day.
All day. Starts at 9 a.m.?
Yeah, it starts at 9.
Okay.
Matt, you have a suggestion here? Your suggestion Sunday?
I suggested Sunday morning.
Yeah, you did, didn't you?
Can I ask a question, Bob?
Yeah, go ahead.
It looks like, what's the construction sort of, the thought on timing and stuff like that? A lot of it has to do with the drawdown, right? What was there going to be work that was going to be done this summer, or is it all going to wait until fall?
I can speak to that. It was being evaluated several different ways. Obviously, the retaining wall systems would have to be done during the drawdown, but potentially during the summertime, at least the installation of some of the stairs to make it a little bit more traversable could have happened or can happen. And so speaking to Mr. Luck's comment regarding plantings, at least cleaning up the site, trying to get some of the stabilization and seeding getting going, plantings if deemed necessary. Can at least start getting going during the summertime and or during the fall or early fall when growing season kicks back in. So there's there's opportunity to do additional work during the summertime. So obviously it's not going to occur right now, But the, preference to get the ball rolling on construction timelines.
Okay. No, I guess my point was, could we put it off till the, following meeting and then the Saturday before that meeting? That was my
May
only question.
19th. What do you think about that, Chris? May 19th.
I believe the applicants are on the line. Chris and Susan, are you on the line?
Can they raise their hand or something so I can see? Aha.
They're labeled as CD.
CD. All right. I've asked them to unmute.
Hi.
Hello,
Chair.
Go ahead.
Well, what was the question, sir?
How do you feel about delaying it until May 19th, the next hearing?
That's fine with us.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, whatever works for you
No,
guys.
we realize there's not going to be a lot of time for us to do the work before the next drawdown, so.
I'm looking for a motion to continue this hearing until May 19th.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Rich Birsch.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
Jack Rabbit.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. Thank you, Chris. And
Yep. So just for my record. Yep.
Thank you,
just for my
Cindy.
record.
Any further
Through the chair.
questions?
Yeah. So the sidewalk would be the Saturday before the 19th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Site visit Saturday.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. That's it for our new public hearings. On to our continued public hearings. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands and Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing for a request for determination of applicability.
Excuse me, Bob.
Yep.
Didn't we have 101 Pleasant Street as the next hearing? That's what I have on my agenda.
Oh. What happened?
It's on my
I missed
agenda.
it.
You missed it.
I missed it. Let's go back. Sorry. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, the Town of Lunenburg Wetland Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Mass Pleasant LLC will be held. Work proposed is construction of a 6-lot subdivision, roadway, utilities, and a proposed wetland crossing at 101 Pleasant Street. Who is here for that application?
Trevor Fletcher.
I see Greg Plunkett.
David Plunkett.
David Plunkett, Mr. Chairman. David is unmuted. Are you representing the applicant?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Trevor Fletcher is also representing the applicant, I do believe.
All right. Well, let me see if I can find him. I found him. I'm asking him to unmute.
How's it going, everybody?
All right. And so let me see if I can find your plans and put them on the screen.
I would also note that there is no DEP number on this file as well.
You want the thing that says 101 Pleasant PDF or sheets 4 and 5?
Sheets 4 and 5 probably will cover most of what we're going to be talking about.
All right. Well, then let's share screens, sheets 4 and 5.
Dave, did you want to say a couple words before I start going through the plan, or?
I'll defer mostly to you, but this is just a subdivision plan that just in terms of scheduling the first public hearing before the planning board is scheduled for this coming Monday. But with that, I'll defer to Trevor at this point.
All right. So, yeah, first off, I'd like to say that we haven't gotten review comments from the review engineer as yet either. And it, like David said, hasn't been brought before the planning board as of yet because of the lack of comments. And I think the next meeting is going to be on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So that's when that's when it will start getting heard. So the next time you'll see it, it'll probably undergo a bunch of changes before we come back and see you guys for the comments from the review engineer. But for now, I'll just give a general overview of the type of project and what we're currently proposing in order to get everybody's feedback. And my boss is the professional engineer on the project, and he is unfortunately on vacation. But I'll try my best to answer all of your questions the best I can. So the project is a 6-lot duplex subdivision at 101 Pleasant Street. And this subdivision is going to be entirely within the bounds of the residential zoning district, which consists of like 12.4 acres of land. The parcel, as it currently exists, goes beyond the transmission lines on site, and that's why so many people were notified. It's like 40-something acres, but we will just be dealing with the residential side before the transmission lines closer to Pleasant Street. The average lot size on the subdivision is going to be 81,000 square feet. Smallest lot going to be 43,000 square feet, and the largest being 144,000 square feet. And on these lots, it's has extensive wetlands on it throughout the entire subdivided area. It's going to be 4.5 acres, which is about 1/3 of the area. The wetlands were delineated originally by Whitman and Bingham partially, and then additional flags were hung later on by our firm, Graz Engineering. And all the lots meet the upland zoning requirements, and so they all should be fine with planning board. The wetlands, obviously, when it comes to conservation, has a 30-foot no disturb zone and a 50-foot no impervious zone. And both of these came into play when designing the roadway and the entire subdivision. And the majority of the subdivision, we're utilizing the entire area that was available to us, which means going pretty much right up to the 30-foot no disturb zone. And all this area will be lined with silt fence or whatever other erosion control that the conservation feels comfortable putting in. And obviously all this whole area will be staked out extensively by instrument survey or GPS, and so that they know exactly where they cannot cross, and so they can put the silt fence in or whatever other erosion control they want in to protect these areas here. One of the biggest elements of the project is the wetland crossing at the beginning of the roadway. The crossing is necessary to access the site, and currently it exists as 3 stone wicks that push the water across kind of a gravel access way from the southeast to the northwest. And the roadway, as it's proposed, will begin on an incline, and it'll be kind of higher grade, and both sides are going to be lined with a retaining wall there. And this is because of 2 reasons. The first is to ensure adequate cover over the culverts that are going to replace these stone wicks that bring the water across. We want to make sure they have a long life and they don't get crushed by the vehicular traffic over them. And the second reason is to capture most of the polluted stormwater runoff as possible when it comes to the roadway. Once we hit the high point at the 185 station, anything after that point will flow down into the subdivision and into some catch basins and through some extensive treatment to get rid of some of the total suspended solids and detain the water as much as possible to reduce the effect of the stormwater runoff on site. And to remedy the 4,100 square feet of wetlands lost due to the wetland crossing, we proposed a 4,600 square foot wetland replication area just north of the crossing in a low-lying area where the wetlands should thrive there. Should be a good location to do some wetland replication. The hydrological analysis that we performed on the site was done with the 2, the 10, and the 100-year storms, both in the pre-construction condition as well as the post-construction condition. And each of these storms, we saw a decrease in the peak flow runoff in the post-construction scenario. We are proposing an extensive stormwater system to achieve that decrease in peak flow runoff, which consists of catch basins, several swales, a downstream defender, which is a pretty extensive treatment unit, sediment forebay, 2 infiltration basins, and a detention basin. All these elements play a part in treating, infiltrating, and or detaining stormwater prior to its eventual discharge into the surrounding wetlands on site. And in the 10-year storm, we got a decrease of 0.15 cubic feet per second. The 10-year 0.43 cubic feet per second, and in the 100-year 0.1 cubic foot per second decrease. So with these stormwater controls in place, we shouldn't see any large adverse impacts to the surrounding area as a result of the subdivision being implemented here. But I think that is all I had pertaining to conservation. So with all that being said, I'll be happy to take any questions and I'll answer them the best I can.
Any comments or questions? Jack Rabbit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If my memory serves me correct, there's a stream that runs fairly close to that property. Is that I believe that's correct.
Where are you talking? What location?
Well, to the left-hand side. When we looked at these properties a couple of years ago, there was a stream that was running year-round, and I believe it falls. What you're proposing probably falls within a couple hundred feet of that stream.
As I understand it, there might be a little pond over there, but as I understand it, the USGS does not delineate any perennial stream going through that area. And so there wouldn't be any riverfront area associated with that.
Excuse me, Jack.
Yeah,
it's on the opposite side of the lot.
That's right.
It's on the other side of the power line, Jack.
Yeah.
This is before you even hit the power line crossing.
Okay. Prior to that.
Yes.
Okay, so we're 200 feet out. That's fine. Okay, thank you. Because I just didn't see the upper piece. Thank you.
Anything else, Jack?
No, that'd be it, Bob. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Richard.
I don't have much to comment on where this isn't really the finalized plan, but our regulations do state a 2-to-1 replication ratio.
Okay.
So if you've got 4,100 square feet of disturbance, you need a minimum of 8,200 square feet of replication.
Okay, yeah, we'll address that in the next.
And I would ask that if this is some of your concern in the wetland crossing, that we do get a blow up of just the wetland crossing itself, and of course a detailed blow up of the replication planting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? David Plunkett, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, Mr. Chairman, just listen to comments. Obviously, we're going to be moving forward, getting more comments from the town, and we will stand ready to address any issues or concern that you have.
Yeah, I'd say you're a ways away yet from getting anywhere near to being done, but when it gets closer, where we're out there doing site walks and stuff, we're going to want things staked out so we can see what's where, especially where things are within the buffer zone. And it looks like you have a lot of activity within the buffer zone. So anything else from Richard Bursch again?
Mr. Chair, generally when we're doing some of these larger projects with the planning board, we do try to piggyback with the engineer that they have doing the review. I believe it's Graves generally. And I would just request that if we could get his review documentation sent out to us as it's available.
That's an excellent suggestion and request.
And then if you could maybe just communicate with the planning board if we do have other questions. We've always found that Graves is fairly knowledgeable in the wetland issues as well.
Thank you, Richard. Excellent.
Thank you.
On any other questions from commissioners? Questions from the public? Andrea Lanford.
Thank you. Andrea Lanford, Pleasant Street. There is a pond just to the right. I mean, the left.
To the left.
To the left of the entrance. Now, that's not going to be removed in favor of this wetland replication, is it? It's going to remain, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, but there's no intent. I don't think we're getting anywhere close to that little pond there.
Okay, thank you.
The wetland replication is just going to be excavation of upland to get it down to the same elevation as the wetland, and so the wetland will grow there as well, and it should be expanded after we go through this. So.
Okay.
Trevor, did you guys see the comments on the portal, the town's electronic portal from DPW?
Yeah, I think I saw one from the DPW about the catch basins and the cleaning, the maintenance of the catch basins and the stormwater structure.
Yeah, if the commission wants, it is on the cloud, it says DPW comments.
Yeah.
What I did was I printed out a PDF of the comments from our portal.
Okay.
Onto the commission's meeting binder.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to make sure you knew they were there. I figured you would. I should have alerted you.
Was there just the ones from the DPW and then I think?
Yeah, I checked it again today. Those are the only comments I've received.
Okay, sounds great.
And so I'm going to share a different screen here. This is the GIS, aerial photograph of the site. And this is, the existing pond. When I look at your plan, the pond is not really clearly delineated on the plan that I can see unless I'm missing it.
Yeah, no, we didn't delineate the boundaries of the pond, but if you would like that in the next submittal, we could.
I would.
Okay.
I would like that.
Easy enough.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Andrea Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the record, Andrea Adams, my mother is Beatrice Adams, who is one of the abutters to the larger parcel at 39 Pleasant Street. I just say that, and I want to thank first Mr. Fletcher for sending me the full packet that he submitted to the town. Thank you very much for that. As I said to him, I thought it was a very aggressive proposal for a piece of property that's significantly encumbered with wetland and other issues. I look forward with interest to his revisions to make it, I think, a more viable project that reduces some of the necessary site work that would be needed in order to accomplish this first generation design. And I'll look forward to providing some additional comments, as I have two of my colleagues, one who's a conservation agent and one who is a builder himself of various different types of housing on all sorts of different sites over a 30-year career, is going to provide some analysis for me. If that occurs in time for the planning board hearing, I'll provide it then. Regardless, I'll provide Matt with any comments through his email address on the town website. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Oh, and Mr. Fletcher, I'll also provide them to you, of course.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Andrea LaFord.
I did not raise my hand.
Oh, well, then we're gonna put it down. Andrea Adams, we just did that. Rich Bursch.
I was wondering if we have the entire set of plans available.
Well, I asked the gentleman, we got sheet 4 and 5 here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest of it consists of like roadway profiles and detail sheets. Sheets 4 and 5 will give a general overview of all the house locations, all the roadway, and all the stormwater and all that stuff.
Is there any way that we can get some copies and separate out some of the layers?
I mean, I can generate
Unfortunately,
some
this
things
is-
if you give me like the layers you want turned on and which ones you want turned off.
Okay, if you could provide us with a list of layers as you've got it designed. I mean, I'm having a hard time following the 30 and 50-foot wetland setbacks.
Okay.
And I've got it blown up, I don't know, it's maximum on my screen, and I still can't follow some of the wetland lines. I can't follow the 30, 50, and 100-foot setbacks. Perhaps maybe we can get the wetland setbacks in color to help us determine exactly where we are. But from my opinion, this map is just, or this plan that you've presented is just too busy for us to make better decisions.
Okay, yeah, we just recently got a color plotter actually, so we could do that and get you some hard copies, but unfortunately the scanner we have is only in black and white.
Well, if you could, I mean, you can export them in color, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we probably could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because we deal mostly in PDFs.
Okay.
We don't really deal that much in paper, especially in the era of Zoom.
Yes.
So if you could export them to color PDFs, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, we can arrange a couple of sheets to be like that for sure.
Because I totally agree with Mr. Bursch's remarks about it'd be nice to have the 50 and 100 and the edges of the resource areas delineated in color.
Okay.
Anything else, Richard?
That's it for now.
Thank you, Richard. Any other comments or questions from commissioners or the public or anybody else? So obviously, we're going to continue this. When would you like to have it continued till? Are you good with the 5th? Do you want to go to the 19th? When would you like it continued to?
As my understanding, Jeffrey Walsh, I'm not sure if he's doing the review himself, but he's from Graves. We actually had another project with him. He's on vacation for a week. And if we haven't gotten comments yet, I'm not sure when we will. So the 5th might be a little soon.
Well, then why don't we shoot for the 19th?
Yeah, that way we'll at least have a planning board or 2 meetings. And then once that's ironed out a little bit more, we'll have a more definitive plan for you guys.
So I'm looking for a motion to continue this hearing until May 19th.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Rich Birch.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
Carl Luck. Oh, Carl's not here. Jack Rabbit.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we'll go to our continued public hearings. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaw, a public hearing on a requested determination of applicability for work at 73 Peninsula Drive by Daniel Murphy will be held. Work proposes the removal of trees within the buffer zone. Is someone here representing Mr. Murphy? Can you raise your hand? Or Dan Murphy? Aha. Is that him?
Well, that would be him.
I just see video. I don't see any audio at all.
Do the hot mitts.
Gonna ask him to start his video. I'm gonna ask him to, let's see.
Oh, there he is. He doesn't have any audio though.
Yeah, no audio. What are we gonna do with no audio? Dan, you have to go in and start your audio. And if you click on yourself in the participant list, you should be able to start your video. Start your audio. Or click on use computer audio. Otherwise, we're going to have to continue this hearing again, because if you can't participate, I don't know how, with audio, I don't know how we can have the hearing.
I think he's trying to call in.
Yeah.
Okay. I restarted the chat, by the way, and I've allowed people to unmute themselves, so, because we're down to 21 participants.
Yeah, I think he just pointing at his phone. I think he's trying to call. So he has audio on his phone and video.
Maybe he's 150 8, because that's the only phone.
Dan, is that your number? 508-479-4349?
Yep, he just texted it in the chat.
Okay. So I've asked you to unmute. What does he do to unmute a phone? Star 9 or something?
Yes. No, you have to unmute it.
I've asked him to unmute.
Star 6.
Star 9 puts his hand up.
They said star 6-9.
Star 6-9? Thank you, whoever said that. Dan, can you hit star 6-9 on your phone?
He says he did.
Oh dear.
I don't know if this would help. Maybe he could call my cell phone and I could put him on speaker.
Sure, let's do that.
Dan, why don't you try calling my cell phone?
What's the number, Matt? He's typing in the chat.
978-314-7858. Yeah, hi Dan, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry about this. The phone was working fine before.
Can everybody hear Dan okay?
I could hear him.
Yep.
All right, Dan, go ahead.
My proposal is just to take down some trees on my lot. They're really overgrown, and I am extremely worried that one of these days they're going to come down on my neighbor's house or my house. We've been on that land for over 60 years, and those trees have been with us for 60 years. So sooner or later, they're coming. Plus, it's wreaking havoc on the yard. There's no sun, there's no nothing.
So,
That makes
all right. So I'm looking at the request. Aha, here's a diagram.
Are all the trees on that plan slated to be removed?
Yes, I'd like to. They're all very large.
Looks like 11 trees.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes.
All right, so I gotta put that up on the screen right now.
Yeah, it's not as pretty as the other plans you've seen.
So what's your address on Peninsula? 70?
73, sir.
All right.
You gotta love Zoom, huh, Bob?
Yeah.
I've got two computers going and now my cell phone on speaker. Talk about electronic overload.
All right. Well, you're just down the street from Katie Adams.
Sorry?
You're not too far from Micah Merso.
I would propose not.
All right, so Jack, did you go on a site visit here?
I did, Bob.
And what are your comments, Jack?
Jeff also accompanied us too.
Jeff did. Oh, good.
Yep.
So what are your gentlemen? What are your comments?
Honestly, Mr. Chairman, I think that we don't need to pull all those trees down. There are a couple of them that look pretty darn healthy. I would think that if it's a question of overcrowding or concern about the health of the tree, that we call in an arborist. I do notice that on some of the property, there was actually some other trimming of the smaller trees that had occurred earlier. And so I would call us, let's get the arborist and let's all go down and sit down, because again, we can't talk too much specifically about which tree goes and which doesn't. I know there are a couple that are close to the house, but honestly, I thought that was, there was more pruning than was necessary.
Jeff, what are your comments?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think maybe 4 or 5, but this would leave that area of the yard pretty bare. And just looking at satellite footage, there's quite a few trees in the area, so it would be kind of a big gap in that shoreline of not having much for shading in the evening. So that's just my comment as well.
Thank you. Did Kyle take any pictures of this, Matt?
Not that I remember him sending me, no.
Let me take a look. 1 second. Because I know he sent a couple of things with pictures.
There's none in the cloud file for it.
Yeah.
I did take pictures, but I cannot find where they were.
Yeah, but they're all of Fire Road 16 and
yeah. Bob, this was a few weeks earlier. This was not last weekend.
Okay.
I have a bunch, Bob.
You do?
Yeah.
Why don't I? Can you share them to your screen?
I can try.
All right. Well, I'm going to enable screen sharing.
Okay.
Picture's worth 1,000 words, they say. You know.
Sure is.
So
I just have to
allow
airdrop
participants to
them.
share screen.
Okay. Got the airdrop. So. Is there something that'll pop up on the Zoom meeting with a share screen?
Oh, so you take and you click on the Zoom thing, and at the bottom you should see a thing that says share screen.
like a green button on that bottom.
green
Oh, hey,
button.
here we go. There we go.
Look at that.
Mr. Murphy, you got plenty of battery life, right? We might be a while.
I'm sorry, what?
You got plenty of battery life on that phone, right?
I'm at 38%. I started at 100.
So do you see that?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great picture, Jeff.
So there's a double pine right in the center that he mentioned. So you can see that's pretty much all the shading in the yard. That's the house. That large double pine is the one on the left.
It's,
I see.
it's the double pine that scares me the most.
I would just say that the pictures make it obvious that the diagram's not to scale because these pictures are not as close to the house as they would appear in the diagram.
So they're pretty large, healthy trees. And you can see there was some pruning done here.
Actually, Bob, if you were to take the diagram and go on site, it becomes much more readily apparent which trees he was looking to cut down.
Okay.
And there were a number of small
Yeah.
trees.
I'm not seeing the pruning. I haven't pruned any pines.
No, I think it was just this picture here. You can just see a lot of little,
Oh, the little scrub stuff, yeah.
like between 3 and 4 inch.
Yeah.
But I think that picture is pretty good right there. So all those trees will essentially come out.
Well, if you guys want to come out someday, we can, certainly identify ones that feel should stay.
Yeah, I would suggest we try to hold a better attended site walk. Rather than, going to the expense of hiring an arborist, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I think the commission could, make some judgments about, well, let's approve this one and not approve that one. Not that we can have discussions at the site, but we could take a look.
Sounds good to me.
So with that, I'm looking for a motion to continue to, given the problem with town meeting, May 19th.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Rich Bursch.
Aye.
Katie Childs. Katie Childs.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you, Katie. Jack Rabbit.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself.
So, Mr. Murphy, we'll be out on site on the 15th,
What day of the week is that, man?
Saturday morning.
Do you have a time or?
Be about 9 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Nice job on the house too. Looks like it's coming along nicely.
Oh, it's I just retired, so I finally have time to fix it.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good night.
All right, thank you. Pursuant to
Thanks,
Mass
Matt.
General.
Bye.
Go ahead.
No, he just hung up.
All right. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, and under Lunenburg Protection Bylaw, Chapter 335, the Lunenburg Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing for a notice of intent by Cynthia Ritchie for work at 137 Flynn Road to build a natural stone wall along the waterfront to protect against future erosion of the edges of the land and beach. Are we continuing, Matt?
Yeah, I don't have any further documents submitted, and Mr. Roy did submit a request to continue the meeting until May 5th.
So I'm looking for a motion to continue until May 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion and seconded. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Rich Birsch.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
Carl Luck. Oh, he's
Aye.
not here. Jack Rabbit.
Absent.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. All right. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, and under Lunenburg Protection Bylaw, Chapter 335, the Lunenburg Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing for a notice of intent by Empire Management Corp. for work at 757 Chase Road for the demolition and reconstruction of a commercial building with grading and parking. We continuing this, Matt?
I don't see anyone here, so yeah, I would continue.
And I think we should continue to May 5th.
I would make a motion that we continue that to May 5th.
We have a second.
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 You have any comment on that, Matt? Continuing to May 5th?
No comment.
All right, excellent. Roll call vote. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Rich Birsch.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
Jack Rabbit.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. Thank you. Under the Lunenburg Protective Bylaw, Chapter 335, the Lunenburg Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing for a notice of intent by Joanne McGurn for work at 238 Fire Road 16 for the construction of a single-family home with a driveway crossing. Is someone here for the McGurns? I see Joanne. She can unmute yourself. Is there anybody else here? Brian Butler?
Brian Butler's here.
He can unmute himself.
I'm unmuted, but I don't see myself on the Brady Bunch.
Yep, you're there.
You're there.
Okay, there I am now. Okay.
Yeah, you're right by Alice.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Brian Butler from Oxbow Associates and Butch and Joanne McGurn on the big screen, at least on my view. We've continued the hearing since the April 7th, I believe it was, on this matter on Fire Road 16, 238 address number. We were largely because Ms. Child was waiting or wanted to see the actual superseding order conditions that was ordered by the Central Regional Office of the DEP. That was issued on the 16th of this month. It was sent out. Luckily, Joanne received the hard copy because the electronic copy was sent to the wrong email address, so the commission didn't receive it. It was sent to LLC at Lunenburg Online instead of LCC. But in any case, Matt, I forwarded a copy to Matt. I also uploaded it to the online site, so it's reposited there.
Yeah, Brian, I emailed it to the commission and put it on their meeting binder.
Yeah,
So
I
they
assumed
have
you
it.
did, but I just loaded it up there just for completeness.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
Perhaps for redundancy. With the order of conditions is fairly straightforward. There's no surprises. Actually, the cover letter is more informative, I think, in most aspects that accompany the superseding order. And it just declares that the project complies with the standards of the performance standards of the Mass Wetlands Protection Act and has some general conditions, standard conditions. No special conditions are appended to it. And so we've overcome that hurdle at long last. And with that, we'd like to go to ask the chairman to take a motion for a vote unless there's another outstanding item. I know Ms. Childs is, I think, the individual member that still had some questions, and that I think the question was she wanted to actually see the order.
Brian, I believe there's some additional questions tonight.
Okay, we're happy to try to address those.
And so I'm going to call on Rich Birsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the last meeting, I had asked about the walls that deviate from the sides of the driveway once they cross the wetland area. Once they go perpendicular to the driveway, they are no longer exclusively used for the driveway. I believe I just sent you a an update with a little color in there just to give commissioners a chance to look at it. Where this was another fairly busy plan.
And so, Matt, did you load that up to the cloud?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on there. It's labeled walls inside 50.
All right, so let me. Walls inside 50. It's a JPEG. I'll go on up. Oh, maybe it is open. All right, let's blow this up and let's share the screen. I'm going to share the screen so Mr. Butler and everybody else can see it.
Great.
Okay, Rich, take it away.
All right, so shown in red is the boundary for the 50-foot no structure zone. Shown in yellow is the 30-foot no disturbance zone. And then highlighted in blue are where the walls deviate away from the driveway. The one to the right or the easterly side is clearly within the 30-foot no disturbance zone and does allow for a substantial amount of filling inside the 30-foot no disturbance zone. The one on the left veers away just after the 30-foot and again allows for a substantial amount of filling and, in my estimation, an increase in the development window. We've been pretty uniform in our upholding of the 30-foot no disturbance zone and the 50-foot no structure zone as to wall placement. These walls, in my estimation, should continue, if needed, along the driveway and parallel to the driveway only until they get to the 50-foot no structure zone, at which time, once they're out of that zone, then they can veer to the left and the right away from the driveway. But where they're placed here in the 30-foot no disturbance zone and within the 50-foot no structure zone, it does definitely allow for quite a bit of disturbance that is in violation of our regulations. And where this is a brand new site, really shouldn't be granted a variance other than just to allow the driveway to continue into the development envelope.
So, Brian, what are your remarks on this?
Those are accurate observations. I assume I don't see on the west side. Okay, what is the blue key code? Just the wall itself?
The blue is the wall itself, Brian. Yep. And then the yellow is the 30-foot no disturbance, and the red is the 50-foot no structure.
In which case we would have requested a variance to the not the act but the bylaw. Simply, I mean, there's a large number of walls that are built lakeside in numerous hearings. We think these are in proximity to the isolated vegetated wetland that's part of the flood zone, part of the flood plain there. We don't think they're particularly deleterious, but we would, I guess, in view of this petition for absolution from that requirement. We could probably
Brian, what's?
Go ahead.
Can you explain why you think those walls are needed?
In order to make the pullout for the main thing, I think, is I'll ask Butch if I'm missing something, but to make our pullout for the parking, the garage. Yeah. To level that surface off, or make it, it's not exactly level, but it's a very graduated slope. It goes to.
And how about the one on the left?
The one on the left, it appears left good, ties in the post-construction contours, but Butch, that one seems a little bit less.
Yeah, that one's not needed at all, quite frankly, Brian. That one can go away very easily without any really impact to anything. Zero.
A 3-to-1 slope.
It was a luxury to have, as you know, Rich Birch has said earlier. It just gave a little bit more real estate around the house. I'm not opposed to even just scrapping the two walls on those flanking walls either.
Well, on the west side, I think it's readily.
But yeah, that needs the turnout for the garage.
The east side is more critical, Butch?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's clear, Mr. Chairman, we can regrade the westerly side without too much problem, just to bring it into a 3-to-1 and capture all those 5 or 6 contour lines that are shown there. It's slightly less convenient. It's a little more manipulation, but it's not impossible, certainly.
Are there any other comments or questions from commissioners? Jack.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a chance, Carl and I did have a chance to walk back out on the property this weekend. And there were things that somewhat struck me with regard to the trail itself. And if we're playing with a 12 feet as recommended by the fire department, a couple feet on either side, you are really cutting into the top of the esker. And I have all sorts of pictures to support that. There's also been some, I don't know exactly where the pieces, but some of the trail, the trimming's actually begun. And I would wonder why that might be occurring. And the piece looks like a piece of equipment went in and just basically pushed them over. And again, I have pictures to support that. Also, I had a question with regard to the alternative analysis. There is another piece of area that's actually been cleared by a wetland. There are a pile of trees down. A lot of nice birch were taken down. And I'm saying, why wasn't that selected? Because that provided a reasonable view. I still don't see anywhere where you're going to put the docks. I still don't, the trails. And I did when I did the DEP report, okay, but what about our own town bylaws? Where are they totally ignored? We're wavering enough as it is. And honestly, I would like to invite a couple of the members out to see what we're approving. And Katie, I'll take some time off in the middle of the week. I get it, you do work. Because my feeling is we're shoehorning this in. We're leaving trees very close to that building. We know based on history that at some point, someone's going to be coming back in and saying, I'm worried about the tree falling in my house. Oh my gosh, I'm not, there's going to be a lot of reasons for them to come back and remove more trees. I went back and I've not been able to complete the count, but the other things were really flagged were at least 8-inch trees. And generally they were all oaks that were flagged. The pines probably weren't counted. So we're losing far more trees in that area than we'd ever imagined. And in our own town bylaws, when we perceive the actual area of destruction being greater than what was ever desired, we do have the right to say no. And that's why, and Katie and Ken, I would love to go out back with you and walk this again and show you what this really means to that area and the amount of change. And, it's interesting. The last session at the alternative site, we referenced the amount of material that was going to be moved in order to make this alternative site right beta the base of the road workable. But it's the same amount of material that's getting moved at the top of that esker in the more sensitive areas. And, so why would we be doing that? And then the other thing that sits in the back of my mind is saying, why is there a refusal to subdivide till later? And honestly, it looks to me like that alternative site analysis looks like that could be the place you were intending to subdivide. In fact, after talking to a couple neighbors, and I won't go any further than that, but that was their impression that was going to happen. So I'm back to the earlier. I appreciate the DEP making the comment specifically the wetlands protection, but they've ignored what our own town bylaws and our hometown regulations are. So at this point, I will not support development of that. And honestly, and Katie and Ken and Jeff, let's go back down and I'll show you the things that we came up with. That gate is 13 feet wide, right? And we know that the fire department's recommended 12, and you got to put 2 feet on it. And if you look at the pictures, you'll realize we're beating the living daylights out of both sides. We're basically taking down the top of that esker. So that's my feeling, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. And I do invite, and Katie and Ken, I'll be more than happy to go out with you and show you what I found, as well as Carl found some other pieces. And but again, we can't talk. But that's my position. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, I believe there was a statement made in the last meeting that we would not move forward if there were any of the members were missing. And I believe that either someone on our side said it, or actually I thought it was somebody on possibly the lawyer that had said, we don't want to vote until we get the full membership.
I believe that was Joe Levine. Mr. Butler, is the applicant proposing a 12-foot driveway?
It's currently a 10-foot driveway.
That's what I thought.
Mr. Chairman, the fire department recommends 12. We've always stayed with whatever has been recommended by the fire department. And that
the plan before us has a 10-foot driveway, Mr. Rabbit.
Yeah, but at the same time, Mr. Chairman, the fire department's recommended 12 because there was no turnaround at the end sufficient.
He didn't recommend, he suggested. Mr. Chair, can I speak?
Mr. Butler, first I'd like to hear from is that Mr. Butler?
No, that was actually Butch.
Oh, Butch.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from Jeff Viviano first, and then I'll call on you, okay?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Jeff.
Yeah, I've actually, one of my cushions blew up on your shore, so I had to go retrieve it the other day. So I wandered up in there, but so I am very familiar with this lot, being on the lake most of my life. It is a really nice spot. I guess my only question is, if the wall to the west can go, that wall to the east, is there any way to move that to the 30-foot, or even maybe just eliminate it? Looking at the grading there, it may not even be required if you did move it, further back, and if that paving did go back to the 30-foot. Is that possible at all?
I can speak, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, it is possible. It just gets a tighter radius coming out of the garage.
Out of the garage? Okay.
Yeah, it's completely doable, and it could be graded from that yellow line right down to the slope, toe of the slope, no problem. So,
okay, so you could get rid of that and just pull the paving to the 30-foot, possibly. Okay.
Yeah. Then to answer to John Rabbit's question about the fire department, I personally spoke to him. It wasn't a recommendation. It was just a suggestion. He clearly stated to me, and you can follow up with him on your own if you'd like, that it's nothing that they mandate. It was just a simple suggestion on his behalf to hearken to one resident to the next. So it's no special requirements out of the town.
As far as I know, he had mentioned that in the comments to the conservation commissioners. One of the town
responded to
the whatever the town permit app is.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
At this point, I would ask that an updated plan be drawn if we are eliminating these walls and the grading inside the 30-foot, so that we do have an accurate depiction of what we have approved, so that everybody's on the same plan.
We could take that approach, or we could make it a condition of approval.
Conditional approval.
Myself, I'd like to see it documented so that we have it.
Thank you, Richard. Brian Butler.
Mr. Chairman, just in response to Jack's comments, and I appreciate the amount of time and scrutiny he's given, as the other members have, to this, but I think he slightly mischaracterized the equity between the amount of soil disturbance we're doing for this proposed driveway on the crest of the esker in the alignment of the existing road, and that would be in the dozens or hundreds of yards of material, even with the entire house construction, house, garage, and septic. The proposed alternative was in the thousands of I think it was 500 odd triaxle loads of material to be moved and displaced there. So it's really orders of magnitude different in the volume of volume of soil disturbance. So I would try to correct you there, Mr. Rabbit.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, I just
respectfully.
recall there was a statement made and there was a comparison done. And Rich, you perhaps can help me with regard to the amount of material and disruption that would go on as a result of the continuing that road, as well as the amount of, in comparison to the alternative analysis.
I guess you'd have to restate that question.
Okay, Rich.
What are you looking for my opinion on, Jack?
Yeah, you had mentioned last session that Brian had first come out and mentioned that there was going to be a significant amount of material and dislocation of material in order to support the alternative analysis. And then I believe it yourself had pointed out that it would be similar to the 5-bedroom house going in, the amount of disruption of material.
Yes, the square footage of disruption, I believe in their alternatives analysis was roughly 40,000 square feet, and the disturbance for the current proposal before us is roughly 40,000 square feet. The big difference is the proposal before us is 40,000 square feet of disturbance, all within the buffer zones.
Right.
Where none of the disturbance in the alternatives analysis was in any of our buffer zones or jurisdiction.
Okay.
And we did attempt to do an equitable, comparison about the 40,000 square feet of flat surface on each of the sides of the soil disturbance, and one is greatly exaggerated. The soil disturbance on the proposed alternative, the preferred alternative, is limited because it's already been kind of pre-graded for access for the esker, on the esker trail and the cement pads. Somebody's already graded that off many years ago. This knob glacial deposit out on the terminus of the peninsula there. Yeah. So it was grading is greatly different. The footprint is very similar.
So, Brian, in terms of how much disturbance do you believe is going to occur on that footpath, the cart path area, the driveway?
Largely diminished. There's some areas where the humps are kind of close, but with a 10-foot asphalt surface, the rough grading, and Butch, I'll ask you to probably weigh in because you're in the business. That road is already pre-made. It doesn't take a whole lot of preparation to lay down an asphalt veneer over that.
Right. If I could
already in place.
Brian, if I could point out that you're going to plow that, right? So you're going to push snow on 2 feet on each side. That seems to be the general rule we use, and we usually ask for riprap. If you start, even if it, 10, 12, 14 feet, right? If that's 14 feet is going to be disturbed area, the impact on those trees and those roots around those trees is going to be significant as well. Right? Am I missing something here?
I think you're missing the fact that no riprap is proposed.
Not yet. Where's it going to go, Bob? Where are you going to end up pushing that snow into those trees?
In the places where it's a negative, where it's an inversion, it'll have to be plowed out of there. Where the places where the slopes are positive and go away, it'll be plowed off to the sides there. So it's going to take a little bit of finesse as opposed to a municipal road where you're going to have shoulders typically, or some means of plowing. But some places that's inversion of the road, and there'll have to be some cut there in order to just accommodate the pavement and very little else, because there's no place where that's really much shy of 10 feet on this. But in the areas where the esker is at a crown, the snow can go off to the sides there. And it's not going to be an area for heavy salt and sand. It's not going to be the town trucks aren't going to be sanding and salting this driveway surface.
Right. There's quite a bit of dwell and going down that cart path. Both sides have built up quite a bit. So you'd be cutting into that, or you'll be keeping the snow. You're going to be flooding that with snow and ice. So you got to get rid of it somehow, right? And I'm just interested to see what it's going to look like going down that road. And then we can come down and map out how many trees we're going to take out. The point to the members is essentially, it looks to me like you're gonna think I'm nuts, but there's potentially 1,000 trees we're gonna take out for one house.
No, not even close.
Oh,
No
yeah.
way.
I tell you what, I'm looking
All
at.
right, I'd like everyone to address their comments to the chair.
Mr. Chairman?
That's a 2-inch tree.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rabbit, did you have something more you wanted to say to the chair?
Chairman, I'm not counting the 8-inch trees. I'm counting the 2-inch and wider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's
It's already determined.
and the definition of a tree is not 8 inches.
But anything else, Jack?
No, that'd be enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brian Butler.
Just in response to that, Mr. Chairman, there's from my recollection of the site, there's no mature trees to be cut as a result of the driveway improvements. And Jack did say that some of the roots may be compromised by grading. We don't know that factually, but some of the trees may be stressed and you could ultimately fail, but they're already in a dry matrix. A small percentage of the roots are going to be cut. They may be buried, but they're going to be buried in a oxidated soil. So I'm not in, Rich could probably weigh in on the effects. So we're not going to say that no tree will suffer from this, but there aren't thousands of trees to be cut. And I don't think there's any actual 4-inch or greater diameter trees in the alignment of the driveway that need to be other than trimmed overhead to just allow for, safe clearance. But and Butch, I think you could have confirmed that as well.
Yeah, so that's been.
We aren't cutting any trees for this driveway.
No.
Mr. Chair?
Who is that?
Butch asking.
Go ahead, Butch.
Yeah, the proposal all along has been, we've never going to remove any trees along the driveway. Jack was asked that, proposing this question for over a year now. And Mr. Chair, you actually put that to bed about 4 meetings ago, that it was absurd to even consider a pinky being a tree. It's been all spoken to you all along that we only would be doing some overhead pruning for a larger apparatus, so higher apparatus to go through, and that was it. The width of the driveway is significantly, even as it lays right at the moment, significantly wider than 10 feet. And there is a grading plan throughout the whole proposed driveway. It's been in front of this board, the same driveway proposed plan for over a year. So we've had ample time to look at that. In fact, we've had several meetings out there reviewing that. So to have this being brought up now again, it just seems like a plot just to continue this thing over and over. This thing is getting quite expensive, but all these consultants, and every time that we look at this, we have a question that we're being asked. What have we been doing for a year?
Yeah.
Mr. McGurn, anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. We need a motion. We need a motion either to continue while they submit a revised plan with without the wing walls showing the new grading, or we need a motion to approve contingent upon the removal of the wing walls and showing revised grading.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to continue pending revised plan showing the wing walls removed. On the easterly side, the erosion protection moved up to the 30-foot no-touch zone so that the work is removed from that area.
I'm sorry, Rich. So can you restate the motion again about what you're looking for?
To continue until such time as we have an updated plan that shows the removal of the wing walls, the changing of the grading, and the limit of work on the right-hand side, the easterly side, moved up to the 30-foot no disturbance zone.
And what about the west side, Rich?
Well, the wall would still have to be removed, but that wall there and the grading is currently outside of the 30-foot no disturbance zone.
Okay, I understand. Do we have a second for Rich's motion?
Second.
We have a second by Jack Rabbit. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Yes, for
Rich Birch.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
Jack Rabbit.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. So we're continued. And Joanne, you have a question or statement?
I just, so this will be the last change. I mean, we're not gonna be asking for more stuff again. I mean, it's like every time we come to a meeting, you guys, it's like this, oh, well, we didn't notice this, and how about this? And what about the docks? Like I said, it's just, I mean, we've talked about the docks. We want to get there and get settled and figure out where we want to put things. You know, we keep trying to meet everybody's requirements.
Joanne, and Butch,
and
I appreciate it's been a long process. And so I'd appreciate your patience with one more hearing. I can't guarantee you that something new won't come up. There's just no way for me to guarantee that. I can't see what it would be. But you know, I'm one member and I'm not in a position to make any guarantees.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it's been continued until May 5th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's it for public hearings.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Enforcement. Take us through enforcement, Matt. Oh, before we do that, let's go back to minutes. You weren't here for the minutes part, Matt. Matt, what minutes do we have to vote on tonight?
Well, I was going to send you guys the minutes from the last meeting that, you know, Bob, you and I had reviewed. Unfortunately, the internet at the office went down. And it was like coming back up, going back off. So I wasn't.
So let's get to the bottom line. Do we have any minutes?
You guys should have reviewed the March 17th minutes.
So
I sent those out and you guys asked for another meeting to review them.
And I'm good with the March 17 minutes. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Do we have a motion to approve the March 17th minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Rich Birch.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
Jack Rabbit. Jack Rabbit.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Now, violations. We haven't done violations in a long time. Tell us what we need to know about violations here, Matt.
Yeah, let me just pull out the agenda here.
Maybe we should schedule our long delayed site visit to Leominster Road before the 19th there on whatever date that is. What is it, the 15th?
Yeah, we probably should.
Yep.
Do you guys want to schedule that now, or do you want to do it on the 15th of May? Or?
No, well, like when we get there, we'll talk about it. But I'm thinking maybe we should do that on that day, depending upon what else we got to do that day.
Okay.
Because I don't know what other hearings we're going to have by the time we turn around to 19th. You know, new ones.
Okay, so 90 Roof Street, which was the one where we asked for the applicant to file, or the owner to file an RDA. I sent the documents out and I've not received anything back, and it's been a little while. I don't know what next step would you guys like me to do here? This was the house where they raked the sand out of the lake back up on the beach. I mean, it wasn't an overly serious transgression, but it was nonetheless.
I'm still trying to figure out why we're worried about that. I thought that was what we asked people to do when they had beaches.
Right, but they did it without filing anything. I sent them the materials they needed to file based on the agreement you made with the landowner, and I have not received any of the paperwork back.
Okay.
And you said you've tried to call them or email them or something?
We emailed back and forth a few times. At one point, I had sent stuff that they didn't receive, and I resent it again. And then after that, I hadn't heard from them. It's been a few weeks.
Can we just send them a letter requesting that they file the appropriate documents?
And that's fine. I can do that.
And I might add, Mr. Chair, in that letter, we include that we will be discussing a fine at our next hearing if documents have not been submitted.
I think that's a great idea.
And I would make the fine $300. As we always have the ability to waive or reduce.
Are you good with that, Matthew? You need a motion, or are you good with just putting that in the letter?
No, I can just put it in the letter because you guys can ratify when they appear. So I don't necessarily need a motion and a vote on that one.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, all these letters we're sending out, where are we storing these so we can go back and look at them?
The office.
In the office, but they're not on our cloud.
No, I don't put them on the cloud.
And where it's kind of proprietary to us, why would we not?
I honestly don't have an answer for you, Jack. I mean, the cloud is a meeting binder that's done as a courtesy. I'm constantly working on these documents. If you want me to put them up, fine. I'll just add it to the list of things I do during the day.
Well, yeah, you just CC to that file, I guess.
Well, I'm just a little concerned. We're really busy, Jack, and I'm really concerned if we put more stuff on Matt's plate.
It seems like I'm interested in finding a way to keeping up with what's going on. And if it's a file, on 90 Ruth Street, where are we? And then we don't have to ask questions. What has been our history? How long has this been knocking around? What kind of, I just lost track. And I appreciate that Matt's incredibly busy. It's just that it would be helpful, I think, for the rest of the members to see what the status really is.
Well, if you like, I could just post timelines. I mean, the problem is that when I start issuing these documents, you guys want me to put this on a lot. I do a lot of interactions by email. I'm going to have to start PDFing everything. And it's been really, really burdensome. I mean, it's part of the job, but it's been really adding to the workload with all of the issues with the hunting, doing the website, doing all that. You'd be surprised at what it does add. And then with the amount of calls I get during the day, people coming in, asking questions. I mean, how much documentation am I going to continue to add to the cloud? I'll do whatever you guys want. I'm just telling you, it's getting to the point now where I'm getting a lot of work to the point where, the requirements that you're asking me to do, Jack, and, Carl does the same thing. So you two are basically in sync.
We didn't line up on them. I haven't talked to him about this.
Can I please finish?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. It's getting to the point now where you're basically asking me to do things that are normally done by other commissions that have a department of 2 or 3 people. I'm only one guy. I can only do so much in a given course of the day.
And you bring.
And I'll do what you want, but I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I would be doing a disservice to the position when I retire next year to whomever takes my place by just simply saying, yeah, okay, no problem, I'll get it done. And then the workload winds up being so enormous that the next person's not going to want to stay.
Yeah. And that's probably what queued up my thinking, Matt, is that, you are busy, no question about it. And I see that, you, as we've talked about, you are going to be going in retirement. This stuff is going to be hanging around for a while. And if we can keep some sort of a history going, and honestly, Mr. Chairman, we should be talking about it. Can there be an overlap? Can Matt get help for a while?
Let's stick to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else on 90 Ruth Street?
Now,
So, Matt, can I ask you a question? Is there a physical file on 90 Ruth Street?
Yeah, I have a physical file. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go.
Fire Road 12. Oh, that's the one that where Greg Roy
is doing the drawing on behalf of the town.
Yep, not Nine Valley Road. Nothing.
Honestly, I haven't had the chance to work on that. I mean, the material has been removed, but the The issue on that wasn't so much the material she removed that, it was helping her come up with a notice of intent for redoing that water line. She doesn't seem to be in a particular hurry on that one.
Yeah, well, she made it through the winter with it exposed like that. I was amazed that it didn't freeze.
Honestly, as far as the violation goes, she's cleaned it up. The notice of intent is actually superfluous because it has to do with the line that's going to require some work.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd actually at this point recommend removing that from the agenda because the offending material's been cleaned up.
I'm good with that. Anybody object to that?
I don't have a problem with that.
615 Townsend Street, what's that?
Excuse me.
I forgot what that is.
That's that retaining wall you extended, I believe.
Was that Townsend Harbor?
No,
I think
that's
it's
Townsend Street. That was the
okay.
that was Val Barrows.
Oh,
He's
right,
on a he's on a monitoring timeline for compliance. So I have several landmarks. One he just met. There's another one coming up in May, and there's another one coming up in June. So I'm just going to continue to monitor him to make sure he keeps in compliance. And if anything varies, I will file a report with you guys.
What's remind me what 467 Lancaster is?
That was the that actually could probably be removed at this point. That was the gentleman that rode his ATV.
Yep. Let's do that.
He came up and said he wouldn't do it again.
Did you go
And I
down
will
there?
look at it every time I go by to make sure he didn't do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
was
went
gonna
down
say,
there.
You did. I mean, is there permanent damage done to that wetland, or do you think it'll grow back?
It'll grow right back.
Okay.
I think it'll grow back, but I do look at it every time to make sure they haven't been refreshed.
Yeah.
Fire Road 16. Is that the Keatings thing?
That's the Keating one. I'm actually meeting with some Keating representative next week. I'm just trying to pin down an actual day. But we are tentatively slated to meet next week.
48 Oak Ridge.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like they're still dumping, Matt. We stopped and looked on the way back.
Yeah, well, Keatings is aware that they're going to have to clean it out. They're going to have to deal with the neighbors.
Somebody's still dumping in there more than what they did earlier.
48 Oak Ridge, I haven't received a response. I'd like to do like we're doing with 90 Roof.
Okay. Go for it. With the fine in the whole 9 yards?
Yep.
Anybody have a problem with that?
No.
205 Arbor?
205 Arbor Street is
that's the horse manure guy, right?
Yeah, and I have sent out a few emails to Kim Roth to try to get her to respond. I haven't received a response from her yet. The area does operate as agriculture. I don't think what he's doing over there qualifies as part of an exemption. I simply want confirmation from DEP before I continue to pursue enforcement, whether or not it's agriculture. So, I mean, you know, it may be agriculture, it may not be. I don't know. I need guidance from the state on that one. And the gentleman has been very good about keeping the area lined. He's been very good about keeping the area cleaned. He has been adding to it. He's actually been very cooperative. So I have no issue with that. So I don't see anything imminent as far as an imminent threat. So I'd still like time to talk to DEP to go over his agricultural exemption to make sure that I don't overstep any of my bounds.
Good idea. Anything else on enforcement?
No, that's basically it.
Mr. Chair, I had 3 items I wanted to just bring to Matt's attention that we haven't heard from yet.
Sure.
The Crawford Street violation along the Nashua River. I believe they're supposed to be giving us an update, or should have given us an update last year on where they were on that replication.
Yeah, I actually talked to Chris Anderson about that about a month ago.
Yay.
They are getting ready to get started. I can get an update for you for the next meeting if you like.
Okay, yeah, just we haven't heard from them and it's been quite a while, so if we get an update of where they are on that.
Yeah, I actually did give him a poke, so.
Okay. And I had asked Matt on the bridge on Route 2A at Mackey Home Center.
Yep.
And I think it's been about a month now. Have you heard anything from Mass DOT on why we did not receive a notice of intent for that project?
It's been a couple of weeks and I haven't heard back from them. No.
Okay, they're getting ready to start, so it probably, if we could maybe try to expedite that. I'm surprised they haven't reached out to you. If you,
Yeah, I'd say that they're more than getting ready to start.
Yeah.
I'd say they started.
They have, yeah.
yeah, I know. I saw little pieces here and there of some erosion protection, but they're getting ready to start the construction of the deck. So, and what was the other address on Oak Ridge, Matt? That they rebuilt the house and they were supposed to have rebuilt the wall along the shore, and we had a timeline on that. And they weren't able to fulfill the timeline the first year because the water never went down.
That was the 70 Oak Ridge Road.
70 Oak Ridge. Did they ever do the wall where they had such a nice drawdown this winter?
Yeah, they did all of the construction that was on the order of conditions. I've reviewed the site. I've actually been in communication with them. I've actually reviewed the site with Jamie Rowe. Went out and he has a draft as-built that I reviewed with him that he's going to finalize and submit. The draft as-built, based on the measurements that are out there, show that the work appears to be compliant with the order of conditions.
Okay.
So I've asked Jamie to finalize and certify that.
Okay. And he's also going to certify the planting plan that was submitted?
That is correct. The plantings have been done. Some of it will probably have to be redone. It looks like the drought affected some of it, but I mean, it looks like he actually did a very decent job on the site.
Okay.
I was quite pleasantly surprised.
Okay. Yeah, because I know we had some specific issues with the wall along the waterway that they were supposed to have rebuilt. So I just want to make sure that got done where it was on a timeline. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else? Old business, deliberation of land use policy. Oh, Jeffrey Viviano's in the waiting room for some reason. Jeffrey, are you with us? Well, let's get him a chance to come back.
I think he's back. Nope, he's still muted.
Yeah, he's back.
There we go.
Jeffrey, you with us?
I'm back with you. Sorry, my Zoom crashed there.
Yeah, it happens. That's why I'm hardwired here into my router. So old business, deliberation of land use policy. We had a public hearings. Does anyone want to make a motion? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
I think that's you echoing.
Go ahead, Rich.
At this point, we might as well move for some discussions. If there aren't any, I would make a motion to approve the land use policy or land use regulation as was submitted at the beginning of the hearing. The final draft that we have publicized.
I would ask that you amend your motion to incorporate the modified organization form that Matt sent out today.
I would make that change.
Do we have a second for Richard's motion?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Rabbit, you're on.
Okay, as we've shared with you, my fellow members, on a number of occasions, that we, three of us are feeling that we shouldn't move ahead with this at this particular time, or at least not in its current shape and form. We have four members who have gone the other way. We've received 60 out of the 80 comments, written comments. We have about 61 of them, I believe, that were against that. Meantime, and you've seen in the newspapers where you saw 110 people say, keep it the same. They've moved ahead and they're trying to share a message with you. And essentially this group went ahead and basically attempted to have a non-binding resolution as a way of communicating with us, right? How much input are we going to take? And we've resisted even saying that if the town were to vote to keep it the same, that we would do anything, which is incomprehensible with regard to the fact that we just have to wait a few weeks before you move ahead with that and see what they say. But if there's no interest in hearing what the town wants you to hear, well, I'm sure I can't help you there. I can point out that this particular base of people are our primary users, right? And why would we want to even take the chance in alienating them for future endeavors that we're going to need? We're going to need their help. But if they're ticked off at us, we've already got a sullied reputation out there, and it's not going to help us. Not going to help us at all. And Bob, you said something tonight that I hadn't understood. That you said the trails grants were dependent upon us generating a new set of land use regulations?
What I said was that the trails grant allows us to take and funds about 150 "You Are Here" map signs.
Right.
And it has always been the intent that if we were going to take and put on every one of those signs a statement about hunting on that particular property.
Sure.
And until we pass these land use regulations, I really can't move forward. We're putting up those, with
so
distributing those signs.
We don't pass the regulations doesn't stop us from receiving the grant and the monies. It's just a function of timing, right? A few weeks. Being delayed a few weeks.
Well, Jack, I wanted to put those signs up in March.
I appreciate that, sir.
So you say a few weeks, it's been, April, it's.
You're changing something that's been in place for 10 years, Bob. In 10 years,
Jack.
and no one, you're hearing people say, why do we have to get this done right away? And I appreciate you want the signs to be properly marked, but come on, waiting 3 weeks, is that the end of the world?
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear what Katie Childs has to say.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So personally, I am not comfortable without for voting without Carl. I know it's a non-binding referendum going on at the town meeting, and that we have heard from a lot of people, but I would still be interested on what happens at the town meeting. We might hear from some different people. I don't know. So personally, I think we should set the vote for the next meeting on May 5th.
And so what happens, Katie, if Carl is still in Minnesota or Denver or wherever else he is?
He calls in.
Do we know when he's coming back?
No, we don't.
We not?
Someone told me last night that they didn't think he was coming back until July 1st, but I don't know if that's accurate because he has not communicated.
Yeah, he hasn't said anything to us. Well, I think we should try communicating with him, but still we can set the vote. I think we should still set the vote for May 5th. That's my thought personally.
And if that's your thought, and the fact that Carl isn't here, Jeff, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think there's a motion and a second on.
Yes, there are. Yes, there is.
Can I talk for a second?
Absolutely.
I think
this is discussion.
I think that having a full board to vote on this is very important. That being said, we don't know when Carl's coming back. I'm scheduled to work on May 5th, and we know that my past history when I'm working, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who else is going on vacation when. Like, I just, at what point do we just say enough is enough and take a vote? I don't know what the right answer here is. And I what's going to happen at town meeting? I don't know what's going to happen at town meeting. I think a lot of people are going to get up and say the same things that have already been said over and over again. And to have those voices heard, I think everybody that's wanted to weigh in on this has weighed in on it. So I don't know what delaying the vote is going to do. I don't know what the right answer is. So sorry, that's where I'm at.
Richard Bursch.
Mr. Chair, some to Ken's point, at this point, we still have 6 members present. We still have to have 4 in favor of, regardless of Carl being here or not being here, we still have to have 4 affirmative votes. So I don't think that necessarily waiting for Carl either way, if he's for or against, if we have 4 votes in favor at this point, Carl being here or not is not going to change the voting. And for myself, it's like Ken said, we really haven't heard a whole lot of new, and we've been going through this for many, many months and many, many meetings, and have had many, many people here. And unfortunately, I think at some point we kind of have to just call it and move forward so that you can get the trails grants and the signs, and we can move on with our meetings. Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? Jack, did you have your hand up?
Why? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
I'm sorry.
Andrea, this really isn't a time for public comment, but I'll take what you have to say.
Really not a comment. It's more of a question because I've managed boards before.
I can't hear you, Andrea.
Oops. Sorry, it's more of a question because I've managed large boards before, and getting everybody for a meeting is tough. Given COVID and all of that and use of Zoom, do you have the necessity principle that if somebody's out of state, they can participate remotely by phone and they can vote that way if you need to?
Ever since we've been doing Z meetings, everybody can participate by Zoom. I mean, we're all participating by Zoom now.
That's what I mean.
Birch is participating from Florida, from Arizona, from Michigan.
So that other member that's missing, can you reach them and just say, hey,
I tried.
call in?
I tried.
That's the problem. Never mind. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we might ask our adjunct member what he's thinking.
Sure. Mr. LaRouche, what are you thinking? You've been observing all of this.
I have. I realize where the vote seems to be, but I'm a real process sort of guy. So for me, not to hear everyone's opinion, even though it might be in some people's eyes a foregone conclusion, I think it makes the board look more transparent when you allow everyone to have their say. And wouldn't you feel better knowing that people have had a chance to say what's on their mind, and then no one can come back at you and say, you really held back. I wish you had waited a week or two to hear something. Maybe we'll hear something that we haven't heard before. I can't see the future. Maybe others can. But I'm feeling like, how much will it hurt to wait on, for a week or so? And also try to connect with Carl. Do you think, he must have a cell phone. He must be in some place where he can be reached in
Have you ever
case
called
of an
Carl on
emergency.
his cell phone, Mike?
I haven't.
It's always busy.
Okay. But could you leave him a message?
No,
There's
it's always busy.
You can't text him.
It's always busy.
Mr. Chairman, I leave messages and I do get calls back. And if I text him, he does text back. And I know he's driving right now. He's going
Okay.
up to Pennsylvania mountains and stuff. That's all I really know.
Well, we have a motion and a second. We have people, Katie would prefer that we wait till the 5th. Jeff, I think would rather vote tonight. Rich would rather vote tonight. Ken is on the fence. Jack clearly wants to wait.
Well, we have a motion and a second, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Roll call vote. Ken Jones.
At this point, I'm going to vote no.
Okay, Rich Birsch.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
No.
Jack Rabbit.
No.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I, for myself, the motion does not pass. We're going to take this up on May 5th. Update on the Trails Grant. Any further discussion about this before we move on? Words of wisdom.
It's too late for words of wisdom. 10:45.
Hey, this is early for us.
Yeah.
Updales, I met with the people who abut the old Stagecoach Road that goes up to the Saliba property, and about putting up a gate. They want the gate to be past their house. They're willing to, but they want it to be far enough past so that people that are turning around aren't using their driveway to turn around. So I have to go up there and take a look at it and figure out a place and propose it to them. I don't think we have any certificates of compliance, no extension permits, any committee reports. Time's up. It's 10:45. Any administrative reports or actions, Matt?
Yeah, the Reno and Hollis forest cutting plans. Have you guys taken a look at them? They've been on file for a while.
I don't want to even think about those until we finish these. I'm not going to character these land use regulations.
That's fine. I'll keep it on the agenda. I just had it there. I thought I'd ask.
And any public comment at the end? No public comment on the end. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. By the way, before we do that, so I'm gonna take based on what happened tonight, I'm gonna post a revised land use regs that incorporates Matt's new business form that he sent us today. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
All right. Motion to adjourn. So moved by Katie. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Let's all hope for shorter meetings in the future. Roll call vote. Ken Jones.
Aye.
Rich Birsch.
I think he left.
Katie
Yep.
Childs.
Aye.
Jack Rabbit.
Aye.
Jack, can you please try to reach Carl since he seems to respond to you?
I will, Bob. I didn't
Thank
know
you.
there was a problem. Okay.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
And I for myself. Good night, everybody. Good night,
Good
Mike.
night.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank
Okay,
you.
guys.
See ya.
Hey, Patty. Hey, Patty.
Patty, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, are you guys adjourned for the night? I just missed that
Yep.
last part.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
adjourned.
Thank you very much.
I don't think she's really listening.
Or either that or she can't unmute herself. I mean, that does happen.
All right. Good night,
I'm
everybody.
here.
Oh, Patty, what'd you think?
Oh, no, it's not Patty. It's Jane. I thought you were talking to me. Sorry.
Oh,
That's all right, Jane. No problem.
That's all right.
Jane.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night, Jane. We'll
Good
see you
night.
on the 7th. Or the
For
5th,
sure.
rather.
The
For
fifth.
sure.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep,
Take care,
bye.
guys.
Bye.